And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, yeah.
Attention to roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. And of course, it's Monday morning. Good to be back here. I see the chat is already going. Thank you so much to our friends and listeners. We appreciate it. So Monday morning, New York City, just topics don't stop. We have a potential beef going on with Jessica Tisch and Zohran Mamdani. So let's jump right into this. I'm sure people love the drama. And let's see what's going on. So, John, good morning. Marlon, good morning. Let's jump right into it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, what's up, people? I hope everybody had a great weekend. A lot of crazy stuff going on this weekend. We'll get into most of it, I guess. So, main topic is, what the media is painting as a Cold War between Jessica Tisch and Zohran Mamdani. Me personally, I think that most of it's just headlines. It's just media headlines. And what they're saying is the Civil War or the Cold War is the fact that Jessica Tisch came out on Friday stating that, I'm a protective Jewish mother. I'll never let anything happen to my cops. This was an assault, talking about the snowball incident, that this wasn't just a snowball fight. And Mayor Mamdani doubled down even after their arrest and kept saying that this isn't criminal. This was just kids playing snowball. So me personally, I've been saying it for a while. I don't see what's so great about Jessica Tisch at all. I think that, everything we see is she has a big stronghold over the media. She's painting these friendly headlines for her, not for Zohran Mamdani. And, they're trying to push her up there as this public safety figure. And the fact of the matter is, NYPD cops don't like her. The rank and file don't like her. I don't think she's done anything that's significant at all. She removed some corrupt bastards, not enough of them, and she really didn't get hold of all of the corruption in the New York City Police Department. Everything that was happening under Eric Adams continues to remain. Might not be remaining as much as it was under his reign and his administration on the time when Ed Caban was there, but it's all still there. The nepotism's still there, the cronyism's still there, all that stuff. It's just I don't see anything that she's done, and the media loves her. It makes no sense to me. The same line that she used on Friday, we told you on before it came out in the papers, she used on Thursday in Comstat, and no one clapped. Literally no one clapped because no one believes her. Everyone knows it's garbage, and it's like, it's, to me, I don't see her as this big public safety figure. If she was, she wouldn't be working for Zohran Mamdani. She wouldn't be working to bring forth this Department of Community Safety. And she wouldn't be getting rid of the SRG or renaming them or restructuring them or really going along with any of this stuff. Because, we'll get into it. But look, we're at war with Iran, right? We're at war on multiple fronts in the Middle East, whether the Trump administration or anybody else wants to admit it or not. Having service members get killed. We're having attacks on our own soil. And, we're sitting here and we have a police commissioner saying that enforcing our border immigration law is something that the NYPD shouldn't be involved in. And that's not criminal. And it's just civil, pretending that if some people that came here that just slipped through the cracks don't have the potential to be bad actors. And that in itself falls flat on the face of any counterterrorism mission that we're doing. She's working directly against counterterrorism efforts in New York City. So she's not this public safety figure that the media is building her up to be. What's up, Marlon?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Good morning, chat. Yeah, John. I don't think too many people are surprised. If the reports are true, I don't think too many people are surprised because many people speculated that, she wouldn't last long in the administration, that there would be some rift at some point. You just look at what happened between, the comments her brother made against Mamdani, and then she had to go back on and apologize on behalf of her brother. So I don't think too many people are surprised, but just about that Comstat meeting, I wonder if they didn't clap because they didn't believe it, or they didn't clap because they were afraid you know, they're afraid to react. You know, I mean, I mean, we've heard reports before of her, you know, and speculation about her leadership style being kind of like Ray Kelly, you know, and Ray Kelly, you know, a lot of people feared him. So I have to wonder if it's because they feared her in some way. But anyway, um, yeah, I think again we talked a lot about, believe it or not, we talked a lot about this on Friday, and I'll explain why going forward. That you know, the cops should have done, the bosses, the supervisors should have done their job on the scene on Friday, and I will explain as we go through that. Had they done their job on Friday, I don't think this would have been I don't think the opposing viewpoints of each would have been as so public as they are right now. Okay, because neither one of them would have had to been put in that position. But the job wasn't done on Friday on last week at that scene, and here we are today. So yeah, got a lot to talk about this, and
So I want to thank Matt123. Good morning, brother. Thank you so much for being a friend and listening to the network. We appreciate it. So Matt, I'm gonna read his statement real quick, but before I do, I just want to say we often, and for years, we've been talking about the discipline matrix on this network. And the disciplinary matrix, according to the NYPD, is something that needs to be tackled. We were promised that it would be tackled by Key Chansul, and if anything, got worse. And now here we are with Jessica Tisch, the PC that everyone loves in the media, and now she claims she defends the cops. If you defend the cops, why not tackle the discipline matrix and make this thing fair, or just completely eradicate it? But what I've been told by numerous cops, independent from each other, and that's why I know this is true, because Matt's saying it here also. So Matt says she is abiding by the matrix, either constantly going beyond what the matrix says and absolutely hammering cops. And I often hear she is a big bully. And she could be, right? She's part of the 43rd richest family in the entire country. And I hear she's a complete bully to the cops. So if you're going to defend the cops, why not tackle this disciplinary matrix? And I hear that she used those aggravating factors very often. What are aggravating factors? Those are the factors to increase the discipline matrix. So I hear she's being extremely disciplinary and punitive. So with that being said, if she claims she defends her cops and she stands behind them, that's great. Those are powerful words. But what I want to know is, if that's the case, what does that look like? If you say you're going to defend the cops and you defend those cops and those cops belong to you, what does that look like? What does it look like when you say you defend them? Because words fall short if there's no action behind them. So that's what I want to know. What is the action behind them? We have a mayor that finds it okay that his police officers, his NYPD that protects him, he has his own detail, right? That protects him, does not matter. That it's just a snowball fight. I don't know about you, but a snowball fight to me is amongst kids, where kids throw snowballs back at each other. They don't get attacked by ice pellets. I grew up in New York City. We all did. This far different from packing a snowball than an ice pellet. Now, this is the snowball effect here. But I want to know, if you are saying that you defend them, what does that look like? How? How are you going to stand up to Zohran Mamdani and stand up to Alvin Bragg and the other 4 DAs, other than just words? What are your actions going to be to show that you support these cops? It's time and time again, we hear from Jessica Tisch, and we hear from the unions that we support the cops. How? Show me what that looks like. John.
They can't show you because they're actually not. You know, that's the thing. They can't show you what standing up. I mean, standing up for the cops would be, you'd be enraged about the comments that would happen. You'd be enraged about what took place at that snowball incident. You would be the person who was sitting there, you know, Chief Timmy Bodette, he would have been removed from his position. That duty captain would have got reamed out. Like, what is that? Like, so what, we run down the block now? We run away now? That's what we do? This is how we restore order? This is public safety? And then once once, it came out that Bragg wasn't pressing charges, I mean, you took it upon yourself to pick this individual out and 3 other individuals, and you said that they assaulted a police officer. And the DA said that there's no proof of that. And so why didn't you release the proof publicly? If you were standing up for your cops, you would at least use your bully pulpit to stand up for the cops. It's really what you could do. If you were standing up for the cops when officers are charged by a maniac with a large knife and they're forced into deploying their firearms, you would stand in front of them as the media blitz is happening, as the DA blitz is happening, as your buddy, Letitia James, is trying to do anything to paint it as a failure in law enforcement. But you don't. We sit here and we just watch nonsense, and everybody buys into it. And it just annoys me. It's like, do you pay attention? Do you pay attention to politics? Kathy Hochul is not a person that I would consider a public safety figure, but Jessica Tisch would. Letitia James is not a person that I would consider a public safety figure, but Jessica Tisch would. So if that's the case, then she's not a public safety person either. Just because the king public safety grifter, Bill Bratton, told you, Jesse is doing a great job, Jesse stands up for the police department, doesn't mean, in fact, that's the case. The bottom line is this. If she wasn't a billionaire heiress, she wouldn't be anywhere near the New York City Police Department. If she was, she'd still be a research scientist or whatever she came in the New York City Police Department as. She would have never been a deputy commissioner, and she certainly would not be the police commissioner. So, I mean, and that's true for the majority. That's true for Rebecca Weiner as well. I mean, and there's a lot of other ones. Michael Gerber. It's true for all of you guys. I mean, if you guys weren't politically tied to the Dems, it's all this is. The NYPD is what it's always been. It's a job filled. The upper echelon is ran by political patronage. It's filled with cronyism, nepotism, and corruption at the top. And the rank and file are just political pawns. And, they sit there and up top, they try to paint this out to be a noble profession, which it is. But the dirtiest of the dirty run it from the top. The people who care the littlest about public safety in New York City run it. It's all about who's getting what contract, whose contract's going to this, who's getting honored here, what we could do for you, how safe I could keep my friends' neighborhoods. And I don't really care about you dirtbag working class individuals, regardless what skin color or religion or anything else you are. It's an absolute joke, man. So I'm just watching the media headlines and I'm just sitting there and I'm going, well, at what point does Jessica Tisch leave? When is that happening? Is that happening sooner than later with these headlines? And will the media now start reporting on the actual crime numbers once again? Because we haven't seen actual crime reporting since Jessica Tisch has became the police commissioner. We haven't seen it, other than from independent reporters, other than from individual accounts of people going, oh, my God, I just got robbed on the train. Oh, my God, I just got stalked on the train. This just happened to me. I just got punched in my face walking down the block. I just got robbed. I just got my Rolex stolen. I just got shot at. I just got stabbed. I mean, like, come on, man. This is when is that going to happen again? How is everyone going to realize we're just being played in this Overton window between the Daily News and the New York Post and CNN?
Oh, did John freeze again?
No, I can tell you it's not my stalling, brother. This is on John's end. So, it's nice to see it's not just me, brother. But what John's talking about here is absolutely right? The media mainstream is totally behind Jessica Tisch, right? They love her. They love Jessica Tisch. I got to laugh looking at that picture of John frozen like that. But the elites get behind Jessica Tisch. This is just another political game. To me, if you really care about the cops, I want to ask that question again. What does it look like? When you say you're going to defend them, that's great. But what does that look like? I want to know what type of action you're going to take behind your words. Because if not, they're just words. It's just hot air. How are you going to defend them? What does that look like? And that was a great point. So what John was talking about is that there could have been outrage, and there should have been immediately. It should have been swift, and it should immediately after that debacle, after the cops were attacked by snowballs, there should have been an immediate response to Zohran Mamdani and to the DA's office. Stand out there with a mob of police officers and say, what are you going to do? Because these police officers cannot get mobilized and deployed until you take the proper action. Now, I didn't say strike, tail law, but no one says that you can't mobilize your cops to Gracie Mansion. No one says you can't mobilize your cops nearby the DA's offices. Maybe you got a tip. Maybe you got a tip that something's going on there. Maybe you have intel. Maybe you need to deploy some of your resources there. Maybe that's a way to take action. Sometimes it's better to show the action than to actually just say what you're going to do. The art of war. Just take action and don't show all your cards. But in retrospect, if she really cares, she would take actual action. Again, I want to thank Matt because Marlon, I don't know if you get the same information, but I speak to cops on a constant basis. And they tell me that discipline matrix has been weighed heavily more now than ever. She's extremely disciplinary, extremely punitive. That's right. XTW puts it, Sun Tzu, the art of war. Don't show all your cards. Be your weak, show your strength. Be your strength, show your weakness. And that's what she should do. Yeah, Sleepy Joe, John's down right now. We'll definitely figure it out here. We're going to keep going. You deserve the show. You guys are awesome. We appreciate it. It happens. I'm just glad this time it's not me with the Starlink. But Mom, what are your thoughts on that? I really, that irks me. You know, it sounds great. And when people don't pay attention and look below the surface, to me, it's very artificial to say, these are your cops, you defend them. But how?
Yeah, good point. I think a lot of it is all perception, and because she needs to give the perception that to the lower ranks that, you know, she's with them, and you know, if she doesn't, right, she's not going to get the productivity that she needs out of cops. Okay, when cops when I just believe that when cops have supervisors and commanders who you know seem like they're tangent. I put up a post over the weekend about three commanders in the NYPD, three chiefs who I thought their promotion was rocket fuel powered, you know, because they've gotten promotions like upwards of 4 promotions in the last maybe 8 to 10 years. And I thought that's insane. And in particular, some of them are made assistant chief in like 22, 23 years, which to me is insane because, you know, I would be on my 19th year right now. And do I think I would be ready to be an assistant chief? No way. And would I think I'd be ready to be an assistant chief even if I was a captain or a deputy inspector with 19 years? No way. I think, remember, an assistant chief is basically the equivalent of running your small department, your police department, because they're chiefs of these boroughs. So I think what my point in saying that was that I think commanders need to have a certain level of maturity and experience before they reach certain ranks, right? Now, I'm not saying there couldn't be like 1 or 2 exceptions, right? 1 or 2 outstanding individuals that deserve to be at that rank, but it just strikes me as odd when you know you're seeing guys reach that at such a young age, you know. My point to our conversation now is that when cops have commanders that feel that they've been through the grind like them, who've done things on the job, they feel like, yeah, this guy's one of us too, and he'll be there in the trenches when things go sideways. So yeah, I'm gonna go the distance for him because I the last thing you want is a good, you know, you hate when you're a good boss, a good precinct commander gets promoted or transferred, you know, because you know you like him, you like the way the things ran underneath him, you like maybe he's personable, he just doesn't walk around with a frown on his face and yell at people, you know. But the whole point I'm saying is that, you know, it when cops feel that you support them, they'll go the distance for you, and that increases productivity, and that's what Tish needs, and that's why she's putting up the perception that, you know, she's for the cops. But that's all it is. It's all perception, because when you look at what happens when the spotlight goes, do you actually take action on the promises that you made? And I can assure you, when the cameras die out on this one, nothing's really going to change.
Hey, good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, Pat Donahue. Shout out, brother. Pat usually puts some funny stuff in the chat, but here I think this is a good statement, and I think that you're spot on, Patrick Donahue. Patrick Donahue says, to be fair, there are former high-ranking NYPD who are advising Tish. Maybe that's why she's so dependent on harsh discipline. Yeah, we mentioned that earlier in the episode. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it that she's being advised by Bratton and also Kelly. Now, Kelly, I know he just suffered a stroke. We wish him well and good health, and I'm sure that's going to change things. But up till now, she's had talking heads in her ear, especially Ray Kelly. We know that he was very punitive and disciplinary, but now with the disciplinary matrix, that makes it much more difficult for the cops, because the disciplinary matrix is a weapon that can be utilized to terminate cops, get some far extreme discipline, and also it leaves opportunity for anyone that is in a position, and I talk about the 3-tiered system, to get mitigating factors, which pretty much allows them to get away with anything, where someone could lose one day for some type of infraction because they have the right connections by cronyism and nepotism, and someone else can be terminated for the same thing. And to my understanding, I've had great conversations with people, no different when it comes to Jessica Tisch. So where is this corruption that's been eradicated? Where is the nepotism and corruption and cronyism that's been eradicated? As far as I'm concerned, it's still there. Now, we're talking about Jessica Tisch here. We're not talking about General Patton. We're not talking about leaders that have showed that, hey, they support their people because they've done the job themselves. How can Jessica Tisch say that she defends her cops? You haven't done the job yourself. So unless you actually put your boots on the ground and walk in front of Gracie Mansion or the 5 DA offices, or as John said, and I agree with that, if you really show that you defend them, then Timmy Boudet should have been out on his ass and said, Timmy, you know what? Tomorrow, you're a captain. Since you want to get on a bullhorn and you think this is okay, tomorrow you're a captain, or you know what? Go put your papers in. But that's not what we saw. And that's why I say words fall short if there's no action behind it. To me, it's just hot air. John, welcome back, brother. I know it's frustrating. I've had those issues too, where you're like, damn, how do I get back on? So welcome to my world.
I don't know what the hell it is. Everything looks fine. I just reset the router to see if maybe it's that. I don't know. It all looks good though. I don't know what the hell's going on.
You must have borrowed Marlon's mic.
But his lighting looks better too all of a sudden. I don't know if you're getting a better,
Why I did my hair. Maybe
that's with that router.
I went to the bathroom. I combed my hair a little bit.
Is that what you did? It was tapping a reset button.
Yeah. Maybe that's what's throwing you guys off. So, but yeah, no, dude, you're 100% right. I mean, like when you talk about discipline in the NYPD, it's the same as it ever was. It's garbage. It's cronyism and nepotism, dude. It's, I was reading this thing about this captain in like 1885, I believe. He gets fired because he takes peaches from a peach stand, right? Same commission that fires him. They sit there and they allow the then inspector of the detective bureau. He goes up there and he testifies how he took hundreds of thousands of dollars from one of the wealthiest families in New York City because he helped them solve a case. So he took bribes. He took money for doing his duty. And nobody blinked an eye, dude. Oh, and then they gave him all this investment advice, and he turned the hundreds of thousands of dollars into millions of dollars. And obviously the amounts I'm talking about were 1880 amounts, but today it would have been hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars. And it was like, wait, you fired a guy for taking peaches, but this dude took hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you didn't fire him? And is that any different from what we watched on the Jessica Tisch? She fired that lieutenant from Major Case. I forget the kid's last name. Fired him from Major Case because supposedly he worked. He took $60,000 of unearned overtime, right? But yet we have people who took hundreds of thousands of dollars in unearned overtime and nothing was done to them. But not like, but it was hundreds of them, dude. It was literally like a list of a few hundred people, and they weren't met with discipline charges. They didn't get an investigation. They didn't get transferred. Like literally nothing happened to them. And I bet some of those people got rewarded since then, have been promoted and everything else. And it's like, what's changed? Like, what truly has changed? Who's been fired from this job that should have been fired? Like who? Tell me. It's like
everyone, every active chief, every one of them. Everyone.
I mean, well, that's 100%. You know, that's 100%. But when you look at like a guy like Paul Saraceno, how many people around Paul Saraceno should have been fired? Just besides him. How many people? Like a dozen at least? A dozen at least right in his direct sphere, his direct immediate report. I mean, nobody was fired. It's wild to me, dude, you know? And then again, the fact that she promoted John Shell told me everything I need to know. It's like this is all just for the headlines. You know, I don't know. Me personally, I thought she was going to be Hochul's lieutenant governor, but I see some type of political run here. I don't see that the police commissioner was her dream job or that's where she wants to end up. There is something else behind this media spin, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if she's running in the next mayoral election, but to me, when I watch it, I look at like all of the internal wars that are happening, right? There's a clear internal war inside of the NYPD against Jessica Tisch. And you guys see it clear as day. I mean, there is a clear and blatant leak right out of her office. They've tried to paint her as a racist right from day one. It's right under her nose. I mean, look, I'm in Florida and I could see who's actually leaking what to who. I'm like, come on, you can't see it from one Police Plaza? You know, come on, man. It's a joke, you know? So you see that clear, blatant leak coming out of there, and you're like, well, what is she doing to stop it? And then I'm not a fan of Mamdani's administration whatsoever. But watching him get undermined by his police commissioner, too, in the media makes me laugh, dude, because I'm like, wow. You can't even control, like, you're just as stupid as she is. Like, everyone's just got ulterior motives, you know? Everyone's got an ulterior motive. He wanted her for the good headlines, but he didn't realize the good headlines when it reports the crime statistics, but he didn't realize what price that was going to come at, and now he's starting to see that as well. So, to me, it's more the same in New York City. The grift goes on, man. The grift rolls on. And I don't really think it's much. I don't think it's how it's being reported. I don't think it's being reported that like they're reporting it that like she's against Zohran Mamdani because she believes in public safety and she supports the rank and file cops. But that's not actually how I see it. I see it is that she's just trying to undermine Zohran Mamdani because she wants to be the one sitting in that seat. And she wants to be the one bringing in the Department of Community Safety and all of these leftist policies that she's supported basically her entire career. And all of these leftist politicians, the Bill de Blasio, the Eric Adams, the Zohran Mamdani, she's supported them. I mean, like, come on. Like, how are you friendly? How are you supporting a Kathy Hochul and an Eric Adams and a Bill de Blasio and telling us that you support the rank and file police officer? It's a joke, dude. It's a joke.
Yeah, I agree that police commissioner wasn't exactly her dream job, you know? In fact, you know, I've made comments before about how she constantly mentions her role as sanitation commissioner, you know? She constantly brings up stuff about sanitation. I'm like, you're not the sanitation commissioner anymore. You're the police commissioner. Who cares what sanitation is doing now? That's not your role now. So I don't think it's her dream job at all. I think she likes doing. I think I don't think she likes the nitty gritty of police work, you know. And you know she and I think she's she in a lot of ways I don't think she necessarily likes the fact that you know there are a lot of there's a lot more pushback in being the police commissioner. You get a lot more criticism than you would the sanitation commissioner, you know. But I'm gonna have to push back on Chief Baudet. I don't know him, by the way, and we've been critical of him, and I don't regret saying anything I did about him because I think we were spot on with what we're saying. But I'm going to say that I think he was doing exactly what has been communicated to him, either overtly or tacitly. So I think he was doing what they wanted, and the issue here is that he went about it the wrong way. And I think had they done their job on the scene, which was shut the party down, something we've been doing for decades. By the way, we've had tons of we've had these neighborhood parties, be they block parties or barbecues or just parties where cops go and tell them maybe shut down the music, maybe you can't do this on the sidewalk or whatever, right? And things go sideways. Somebody tosses something at the cops, somebody gets an argument with cops, and then cops call for additional people. And what do we do after that? Well, we shut down the party because you took it too far, and now we're going to shut down your party. We've done this for however long. So when people take it too far in this snowball fight, you should have shut down the party, which is what we do. Okay, when the party spills out of the park and you get a bunch of rowdy people on the streets and what's essentially a street takeover at that point, that I'm sorry that we've gone well beyond the point of just a simple snowball fight in the park. So what should have been done there is that should have been shut down. You should have been issuing summons or bringing people back to the precinct so they can sit in a cell and think over the dumb shit. Okay, and that wasn't done. And had that been done on the scene, this would have been a less of an issue, I think, right? Because Tish wouldn't have had to said, she wouldn't have had to be so public with her perception management that she supports cops. And Mamdani wouldn't have even had to make comments about this kid. He could have said, "Oh, they did their job, and that's that." And because they pandered on the scene, now it's a bigger issue than it should have been, and now they both have to deal with the aftermath. So I don't think Chief Baudet should be necessarily like kicked out for that. Although I think he should reconsider retirement, because if he's not prepared to do his job and shut these things down like you're supposed to, like we've been doing for decades, then maybe it's time to go. Okay, maybe it is time to go. Okay, but I don't think from her perspective that she needs to kick him out or get rid of him, because he was doing exactly what they wanted. Okay, if she supports cops, you need to make a statement to all these chiefs that can never happen again, that you got to do your job. Okay, you got to do your job and shut these things down like we've been doing for decades.
Right now, we're what I often say, we're in the if world, right? Well, if this happens, this would happen. If you do this, this would happen. Now, I'm gonna have to push back a little bit more, and I'll say this: I don't think that's what we do. I think that's what we did, and I think that's what we did. John, you, myself, active police officers that were there several years ago, retired members of the NYPD. I think that's what we did do. I don't think that's what they do now. And from the distance that I'm at, right, traveling the entire country, I haven't been in New York, and I can tell you this, I can see it from where I'm at. Protest after protest, riot after riot. Look what happened in Melbourne, Queens, right? There's not enough manpower. There's no response. No one's shutting anything down. I think that's what we did before. John often says that we don't control the crowds not control us. And when he says us, we mean the NYPD. I think that's what's happening. And I think it's a complete different response. Now, I will agree with you. I think that Timmy Baudet, I think that he's following orders, right? I think that's exactly what they want. The passive response that he did is exactly what they want. And that's why I have a problem with him. I have a problem with him because here he is with so much experience in the NYPD. He knows better. But in order to move up the ranks, because it's self-serving, if you want to get that star or pave the way for your son or daughter, you have to play the game. So Timmy Baudet has been playing the game for a long time, because during the time that he has not been promoted in almost a decade as a chief, Cass Daughtry and many others have been promoted by rocket fuel, and he's still following these simple orders that he knows is not good for police work. So that's why I have a problem with Timmy Bodette, because he knows better. So shame on him. But what I've learned, and we've all learned, in order to make it in the administration that you're in, you have to be able to play ball. So Timmy Bodette's playing ball. I guess he figures that maybe after a decade or maybe another decade, I don't know how old he is, he'll finally get that star. Is it really worth it? Now, I think that Jessica Tisch is completely in line with that, of how we respond. Why? Because during the time that she's been police commissioner, we've seen numerous failed responses. We've seen it at the synagogue of the 19th precinct. We've seen it at Melbourne, Queens. We've seen it at protest after protest, riot after riot. I think now she has to put on a facade and a face and pretend, because this is just so outlandish. Right now, I'm in Nevada. I've been traveling the entire country, and the entire country is talking about the snowball effect. This is the topic of conversation. So she has to put on a facade and show face and show that she's taking some form of action with this, because this is a nationwide issue. This is not just isolated to New York City. This is a nationwide issue. Why? Because everyone loves talking about Zohran Mamdani. Everyone in the country loves talking about it. Wow, they have a Democratic socialist. And now talk about further what's going to happen with the police department. So Jessica Tisch has to make a stance right now. And it's good for her political career at this point. I think it's good for her to pretend that she's going to defend the cops. Eric Adams was great at balancing those scales, right? One day he was for one thing, one day he was for another. No one knew what he was for or against. And the same thing goes with Jessica Tisch. So the question is, what is she going to do? Right? Because, I gave her 3 months with Zohran Mamdani. During that gap, I do believe that she wants to make a run for mayor. But during that gap of almost 4 years, what is she going to do? What is going to be her next plan of action during that time? That's what I'm curious about. What are your thoughts? So I just want to say, when it comes to Timmy Bodette, just like every other chief, I say, fuck you, honestly, because shame on you. Shame on you that you know damn better. You respond, your cops were attacked, and don't tell me that he didn't know. I'm sure you were informed. You didn't just happen to respond to that, to the Washington Square Park. Shame on you for not defending the cops in real time. They say you're going to defend them afterwards. That's great. That's like, imagine someone smacks my wife in front of me and I just stand there and do nothing. And then a week later, I go, you know what, honey? I got your back. I really support you. She's going to go, how? Really? How? And that's what the NYPD is doing. The same thing. You're going to say you support them a week later? How about in real time when it's actually happening? That's how you know this is full of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I don't think she's gonna do anything when the cameras disappear. Okay, because this is how things work. They put up a front when the cameras are there, and when this is getting media attention, and then when the cameras are gone and this fades into the news cycle, it's it's a thing of the past, only to be repeated when the next incident happens. And the main problem I find with this is that, right, she has to show support to the cops, but she's not. I mean, I don't know if you guys heard it, but I want to hear if there's been clear directions going forward about incidents like this, because the summertime is coming, and first of all, we know what happens around. First of all, we seem to be headed into another anti-cop atmosphere. Okay, not too dissimilar. Well, anti-law enforcement initiated through this anti-ICE movement. Okay, because where the problem with that is that this reminds me, I'm getting shades of the Blasio era, and I don't want to feel that way, because what happened during that time frame, Lou and Ramos did. Okay, yeah, Lou and Ramos did, right? So I don't want us to go down that path again. But if you don't make clear directions going forward, we're heading into the annual riot season, and you know what that means with protests and certainly anti authoritarian or authority protests, or if not outright anti-law enforcement protests. And then the summertime is right around the corner again, and you don't want to start going down that route, because cops are going to have to deal with again neighborhood parties, and you don't want to make these young people who are already, like, again, we talk about them being disaffected and nihilistic. You don't want them to start thinking that this is okay. Okay, we can start throwing things at cops. It's okay. You don't want to head down that route. And unfortunately, if they're not getting clear instructions that this can't happen, I fear that we're heading down that route. So this is why but this is why Tish is putting up the front, because she needs to she needs their support. She needs cops to feel that she has their back, but at the same time she's not giving them clear instructions about incidents like this. Again, going forward, I don't think so far we haven't seen anything, and I think once the spotlight fades, attention, that we're not going to be talking about this incident again, but only to face the problems of the summertime.
And in addition to that, in my opinion, I think that Zohran Mamdani is such a polarizing figure to anyone that supports public safety that it's easy for Jessica Tisch to put herself in a political position that she's a supporter of public safety. She's a supporter of the police department. Put aside from being police commissioner, because Zohran is such a polarizing figure, it's easy for her to put herself in that position and not actually have to do anything. If it wasn't for the Finest Unfiltered and our friends and listeners here who are actually taking a stance against this, people would say, oh, great, Jessica Tisch supports the police department. She said so. That's great. But what does that look like? What does that look like? That's what I want to know. If you say you defend the cops, what does that look like strategically? What is your plan moving forward? How do we stop this from happening again? And if snowballs or some other stupid object are thrown at cops in the future, bricks, bottles, then how do we take action? What I want to know is, if you defend the cops, tell the public, not just I defend them, tell them how. Going forward, if you throw snowballs at my cops, here's what happens to you. I want to hear, what's the step plan? What's step number 1? What's step number 2? What is the message to your active chiefs on the job that have no more balls, that they just wear ball gags? I want to know, what is the move going forward? Because Timmy Bodette, shame on you. You have almost a decade in rank, and you don't know what the response is. And don't tell me he didn't know what's going on. He didn't just respond there out of clear blue. Believe me, that radio was going wild, and there was a lot of phone calls. And we all know that damn well. Even if you're a duty captain and you're making a response on the radio, your phone is off the hook. You're getting a lot of information when you get there. So don't tell me he didn't know. He was well informed, and he already knew that there were police officers that were injured that were going to get care. There's no excuse for it. So it shows, right? You fall in line to your leadership. It shows that's what's really going on with Jessica Tisch from the leadership on the way down. But again, I want to make the point that Zohran Mamdani is such a polarizing figure that it puts her in such an easy position, right? To say that she's the public safety person, that she's in charge, that she's taking action. We know damn well she hasn't, because there's still corruption going on with the NYPD. Tanya Kinsella, the first deputy commissioner, was responsible for the overtime that left the department, and she's still there. She's still there. John spoke about all the people that have enjoyed this overtime. Tanya Kinsella was in charge of overseeing that, and she's still there. So please tell me what action has been taken. John, welcome back, brother.
I feel like now I know that Eric's pain. I know it.
Oh, dude, it's not easy, bro.
I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm pissed. Whatever. It is what it is. But look, just to Marlon's point, like Marlon, I don't think like my point with Bodette was not that Bodette is acting on his own. He's a hand puppet like the rest of the chiefs in the NYPD, right? He's got Jessica Tisch's hand directly up his rectum, and they move his mouth in all his directions for him. My point was the fact that the way he moved that day, that shows you that Jessica Tisch doesn't support the police like she says she does. That was the response that was warranted. I agree with you 100%. People think that like NYPD chiefs have the ability to move and act on their own and speak as they will, and they absolutely don't. You know, they're hand puppets. I mean, that's what it is. You basically gave away your soul. You self-castrated yourself, and you gave yourself, and you became a pawn, a political pawn to your political masters, whoever it may be. Now, again, I say these guys are unlucky, right? Just like me and you are unlucky in our careers. We could have had a good career. We could still be on the job. We could have over 20 years on the job. I'd be probably an inspector at this point. You'd be whatever, you know, you'd be a first grade detective at, you know, like it is what it is. It's just the times that you're in, right? Like we don't really get to choose the political atmosphere that you are in policing, just dependent on your age and your luck, right? And the time and history that you're in the political atmosphere in New York City. So now, you know, Bodette could have been a great guy under a different mayor. John Shell, maybe not him, a bad example, but like, you know, somebody else could have been a great chief under a different administration. You know, a guy like Bruce Separano could have been a great chief under a different administration, you know. But like it's just, you just didn't get the opportunity. You came in at a bad time. And I think that was the whole thing, what I was trying to point out. And I think Eric, the same thing. We were just trying to point out that, like, in fact, she doesn't stand up for the police. And it's clear example because the people that she instructs to do, they don't stand up for the police. It was clear as day. It doesn't lie solely on Timmy's shoulders. It does because he made the decision. He was the man in the arena that day. He decided to play that handicapped game that she put him into. So it falls on him, but it shows and proves that, in fact, Jessica Tisch is not this public safety expert that she claims to be. And she, in fact, does not support the rank and file officers, which is why nobody clapped in Comstat. And then she had to go to the New York Post and have them print the article the next day about how she's a protective Jewish mother and she stands up for the police. You know, it's good. The public might buy it. It might change public perception of her, keeps public perception of her high, but it's not reality.
Oh, sorry about that, guys. Getting a little delay on my end too. I think, again, I think we're just going to see more perception management going forward. You know, I don't think we're going to see anything different because, you know, these people don't want to do the things they should, which are in their eyes, it's difficult. Okay. They'd rather, try to, change perception than making the tough calls. And the tough calls would be to, put more decision making on the people on the street. And again, what we're seeing with her is that it's more of a centralization at the top, and that centralization of decision making it also goes down to like all the technology they want to impart into the department. All that does is centralize decision making at the top, and it tells people on the bottom that they gotta wait for instructions to come down for them before they make a call. And and the right thing to do in this case would have been, better decision making on the bottom level, and the same decision making we've been doing for decades. To solve a problem as it comes up on the street. And in order to do that, that would mean we're not centralizing power at the top and decision making at the top. And they don't want to do that because that's inconvenient to the cronyism system and nepotism and this entire pyramid that they have. And it's also inconvenient to their agenda with all the technology. So
great point. Agenda. And that's why I say Jessica Tisch also has an agenda also. I do think that eventually she'll make a run for mayor. The question is, what will she do during this 4-year gap? I don't think that she's going to be with Zohran Mamdani more than 6 months. I give it 6 months to max if we get that far. But the question is, what is her next step? What is she going to do in that 3.5-year gap? Unless she tries to stick it out for another year or a year and a half, and then from there start campaigning for her mayoral run, right? About 2 years prior to actually running. So that very well could be. I definitely think she's going to stay in the political sphere. There's no doubt about it. And I agree with you guys. I don't think that this is her long-time wish to be police commissioner. One, she knows she puts herself in a position where she can't speak from a place of experience. She never had a boots on the ground as an NYPD cop or any form of law enforcement. So she can't say she cannot say that she's been in that position before. And now sanitation, I understand why she could kind of gloat about her position sanitation, because now sanitation is a very important job, but I think it wouldn't be as important to say that you were a sanitation worker to be in a leadership position as to where with the NYPD to make that comparison. Don't get me wrong, I respect what they do. It's a hard job. Any job is a hard job, right? In fact, if you're working. I just think that Jessica Tisch, honestly, I think she's full of shit. If you wanted to get rid of all the issues, every active chief in the NYPD would be gone. And even Tanya Kinsella, she's responsible, whether she took this overtime with her fingers or not. The bottom line is she oversees it. She's the first deputy commissioner, and she testified at the city council that she's part of the plan, the overtime plan. But rather than remove her, instead we said, and that I mean by we, Jessica Tisch said that they would move forward with a different plan. Why? Why would you have to move forward with a different plan if the plan before was working? And if the plan wasn't working because the leadership failed, then why were they not held accountable? And we saw the musical chairs that was going on with internal affairs. So I think this is just another political game. And I wouldn't be surprised if Zora Mamdani and Jessica Tisch are just putting on a show together also. It sure makes it look good to really drive this community safety plan. And I do think that Jessica Tisch is all for it either. If she wasn't, then why didn't Timmy Boudet take action? Timmy Boudet is just another ballless chief from the NYPD. He's going to do exactly what is told. I believe, John says they have puppets. I agree. I believe that if he was told that the cops should go out there and take full action, he would have. He's just following orders. So these chiefs are not independent of their own. The only chiefs that were independent of their own and not for any good was completely unprofessionalism, but it really wasn't they were independent. I do believe that Eric Adams sent them out to do that, was John Shell being unprofessional on social media. And I do think that Eric Adams sent him as his pitbull. But with that being said, this is just absolute horseshit and bullshit. John, you had went down for a minute, and I said, if you really want to defend the cops, you would do it in real action and in real time. And I said, if someone smacked your wife in front of you and you said, honey, I got your back. If you let it happen, a week later, he said to your wife, you know what, honey, I got your back. I'm going to defend you. And she'd be like, really? How? A week later, and that's what that's what happened here. These are these are your people. These are your cops, and you didn't support them. And I said, honestly, what I would do is if I was police commissioner, I would take my mobile field force and deploy them right in front of Gracie Mansion. I would deploy them in front of the DA's offices, and I would say, well, we got intel. There's some criminal activity going on here. We want to make sure that you guys are okay. That's not striking. It's deploying your resources. Uh-oh. John's all fucked up today, man.
That's it. This whole thing got me out of whack. This whole thing got me out of whack. I just pulled them all in.
Dude, they got you, bro. They got you, man. Tish is on the phone right now, dude. Get him. Technical issues. We got him.
But look, we're at war now, right? Like, clearly we're at war with Iran. We're having service members killed overseas. We're being bombed. We're bombing people. Our country has seen several acts of violence. It appears to be the acts of domestic and foreign terrorism. Domestic players on behalf of foreign governments. That's what it appears to be. I could turn out to be wrong, but I mean, I think this country should be on high alert at this point, right? We're basically walking into World War III, regardless of what this administration says. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you feel about it to me. I don't know. I'm not a geopolitical analyst, so I don't really have too many thoughts on it on my own, to be honest with you. I know for a fact, and I could play some videos, that Charlie Kirk was dead against us going to war with Iran. And he was killed not too long after that. And, I watched Charlie Kirk's podcast now say that Charlie Kirk would support this, which is ridiculous because he spent his whole last month and a half talking about why we shouldn't go to war with Iran. But sitting here and now saying that I care about public safety as law enforcement. We see, so when this nation's at war, or even when we're not at war, especially New York City, we're the most vulnerable terrorist target in the world. We're the number one terrorist target in the world. And there's soft targets throughout New York City and throughout this country. The SRG is a unit trained in crowd control, and they're also trained in counterterrorism. So you couldn't get rid of the SRG and not have a counterterrorism effort police these protests, the First Amendment activities, these soft target activities, if you will, concerts, parades, events, and tell me that you believe in public safety, because clearly you don't. You're removing the.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey,
and this Mike went
crazy,
too,
dude.
man. Dude, John, I've been through this, man, with the stalling. It's frustrating. You're like, oh. Don't worry. Why don't you get on your...
Just to sum it up, like, she clearly doesn't support counterterrorism efforts. So I don't believe that she's a public safety police commissioner. If you did, you would support identifying and removing people that are in this country illegally. It's that simple. It's that simple to me. When you're going after your officers harder than you're trying to identify who's a public safety threat for whoever's could be possibly working with ICE. She just sent that memo out again last week saying that you will not cooperate with ICE in any shape, form, or whatever. When you're doing that, that tells me everything I need to know. You're putting politics ahead of public safety. You're no different than the rest of your Democrat friends. You are no different, in my opinion. You are the reason we're here. You supported bail reform. You supported all this bullshit, and now you want to be the one that's going to pretend to come here and fix it. It's bullshit.
Yeah. We didn't finish hearing what you were saying about SRG, John.
Just the SRG. Like, when you're sitting there and saying that, well, we want to remove our counterterrorism effort out of First Amendment activities, you clearly have no idea what you're talking about. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Bill Bratton. I don't care if it's Donald Trump. I don't care if it's the number one person in public safety. You have no idea what you're talking about. First Amendment activities, there needs to be a counterterrorism effort deployed in every single event that there is in New York City. And that includes even just basic responding to basic 911 calls. There is a counterterrorism apparatus in everything we do, and that's been true since 9/11. And when you're saying it's not, and when you're saying, well, this is a unit for counterterrorism, not to police First Amendment activities, you're full of shit. You're putting politics ahead of public safety. And we read last week what the kid said, right? What did he say, the kid in SRG? He said, I feel like I'm the last employee in a store that's about to close. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. So where is our counterterrorism effort happening now? Oh, we only go for the identified counterterrorism threats? So you're telling me that everybody that came in this country, all of the people that are unidentified, all of the sleeper cells, they're called sleeper for a reason, because we haven't identified them. You're telling me that none of those people are a danger to New York City residents or to Americans? I mean, come on. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke.
Yeah. I agree. Like, I want to see if they're actually going to do it now, in light of what happened over this weekend with that war and the increased tension that's going on in the world now. I actually want to see if they carry through. And I did make a statement online about counterterrorism itself. The job loves perception management. So they've been telling the media that they have counterterrorism forces standing at the ready in front of these businesses in Manhattan. And some of the videos, it's like two guys standing in front of a building. Okay, the two guys without rifles. Okay, and I'm like, you think that what are two guys without rifles gonna do when a lunatic shows up with a long gun, like the lunatic that showed up in Austin, Texas over the weekend? I just think that this job just again, they love perception management, but they don't want to do the tough things. They don't want to do what they should do. And again, it's being an adult police department, and you gotta better equip and better train these guys to be prepared for incidents like this. And that includes having a unit like SRG, which it's part of their purview. Okay. So I actually want to see if they're gonna go forward with getting rid of SRG now.
Well, let's be realistic when it comes to this, right? So we're talking about all-out war that's going on right now. And one thing we know is that global conflicts do not stay isolated, right? If we have global conflicts, they actually cause tension throughout the entire world, not just in the Middle Eastern region, right? Those conflicts can be here, whether it's foreign or domestic within, right? We could have conflict. We have conflict already with pro-Palestinian riots. We have conflict already with George Floyd riots, with different riots. But now we're talking about another added layer of the tension that's going on in Middle East right now, and the attacks that we see in Dubai. So that could easily transition to New York City. I mean, where else, right? New York City is the most conglomerate metropolitan area in the entire world of a melting pot, other than a couple of places in the world. But it's very cosmopolitan, and people come from all over the world, and they find there's a meeting point or a nexus with people all over the world in New York City. So right now, you need a counterterrorism apparatus more than ever, especially with global conflict can easily translate and find itself displaced to New York City. And if not, it may already be. There may already be some conflict going on. We need intel more now than ever, really diving into what's going on there, looking for sleeper cells. And not just, unfortunately, I think sometimes we are so honed in and focused on sleeper cells and that type of terrorist, but there's different forms of attacks. And First Amendment activities should be policed heavily, whether it's just, potential protests that turn into a riot of angry mob, or if they're planned terrorist events. And it doesn't have to be chemical warfare. It doesn't have to be someone coming out with a rifle. What do we often see at mass protests, because the amount of people there, something that's become a new phenomenon in the past recent years, and that's using vehicles to trample people with cars. And that could easily happen in New York City. Even in New York City, where they try to take away cars, that could very well happen. And that's a terrorist attack. So it could be something that's from within. It doesn't have to be foreign. It could be a native, homegrown, homeborn New York City native, because it translates global conflict. This is just ridiculous at the point. Removing SRG or any form of counterterrorism, this is definitely not the time to do it. But we're putting politics over policy. Optics is what's most important. And I think ultimately, with Jessica Tisch, I think right now it's a show. We should be focused on what's going on overseas and what could be displaced into New York City. We need to zero in and really focus on that right now, because we are headed for a third world war. There's no doubt about it. And it's only going to get worse right now. And it's going to translate in different ways. If you noticed, your gas prices are going up, and that's very typical when you see a war break out as it is right now. So gas prices start to go up. People are going to be affected by this in the near next couple of months. So they have to be ready, and they're not ready. They're not ready for the task. Zohran Mamdani, I mean, he's more of a TikTok rapper than anything. He's not in a position to support New York City at all right now. And Jessica Tisch, in my mind, is much more concerned with optics and politics. She doesn't need this job. She's in a very good position. If things go bad in New York City, she could just fly on a private jet and be somewhere comfortable. So this is where we are.
Yeah, I think John's mic is
John, you're all mic'd out, man. Oh, that's hilarious.
They hate counterterrorism so much in New York City that when any counterterrorism officer, they have their own uniforms, right? Like SRG, counterterrorism, they have their own patch. Whenever they do mobile field force, they have to change into a regular uniform. They can't wear their own unit's uniform. That's how much it's despised by New York City. And that was true under Eric Adams. That remains true under Zohran Mamdani. So nothing's different. This is the agenda. Like we want to sit here and pretend like New York City's like the greatest counterterrorism force that's ever been seen. And it was true for a long time, but they've removed the frontline apparatus of it. And they've done it not to strengthen our counterterrorism efforts, not to strengthen public safety, but they've done it for politics. Oh, it doesn't look right. People don't like it. Oh, they don't like to see heavy weapons there. It's like, all right, well, it's not about what people like. It's about what we should be doing, and I'm sorry, but like the upper echelon of the NYPD flew New York City blind. Eric Adams flew New York City blind while all of these corruption scandals were out there. They had no access to intel because they couldn't be trusted. They still can't be trusted, the majority of them, and they shouldn't be trusted. I mean, they shouldn't be in the positions they're in, and most of them that ran off into retirement should be getting perp walked. That's just the bottom line. We just got another corruption scandal breaking out of Adams now with his campaign funds now. Millions of dollars went out to all of these debunked LLCs. Tony Herbert got some money. One went to an LLC where a dude was locked up for heroin and crypto trading that he wasn't licensed to do. And we sit there and we're like, New York City was wide open to a terrorist attack for 2 years, and no one said a damn thing. No one said anything. We were literally wide open. The mayor couldn't see or hear anything. He wasn't allowed to. The top brass in the NYPD wasn't allowed to. I mean, we brought you that press conference. Remember when we kept pushing it, saying that they have no federal security clearance? And then eventually the media was like, I think we should ask this question. I think we should ask this now. And then they asked them, and John Shell shut it down. Oh, we're not answering that question. You're not answering the question because the answer is no. None of you have a federal security clearance because you're a bunch of skells. And so, like, the thing is in New York City is we've really stepped back on those counterterrorism efforts very significantly. And yeah, while it may be true that we're working in joint terrorist task force and that work remains happening, what are we doing on the front line? And a lot of the things that happened, a lot of the terrorist attacks that were thwarted were not thwarted because of the intelligence that was shared by the federal government with the federal government and by these joint terrorism task force. A lot of it was pure luck based upon what was happening on the ground and the fact that the NYPD as a whole, didn't matter if it was anti-crime, if it was patrol, if it was SRG, if it was anybody else, had a counterterrorism apparatus to it and thought, well, this looks like this doesn't look right. This looks like something weird. This person looks weird, and a lot of it was luck. So, to me, when I'm sitting there and I'm watching how they're moving, they're moving politically. They're not moving competently. And that's happening under Jessica Tisch. Again, continuing to double down on all the nonsense. And so, to me, I don't know. Like that's why I put a little video out last night saying, like, if you're active, if you're retired, you should be carrying your firearm at this point. You should be real vigilant at this point because I don't trust our government to keep us safe at this point. I really don't. I don't trust our police departments who are telling us that we don't engage in civil immigration enforcement. It's like, okay, so you don't engage in counterterrorism efforts. You don't engage in frontline counterterrorism efforts, is what you're saying. It was the same thing when Bill de Blasio told you, oh, we're not going to go after the minor crimes anymore. We're just going to go after the major ones. It's like, oh, that doesn't sound like it's going to work out too well. That sounds like you're going to respond to the bodies after and investigate. And that's exactly what we've been doing for the last 12 years. And so now we're hearing that same effort when it comes to counterterrorism. No, we're not. That's civil enforcement. We don't do that. Okay, so then you don't do frontline counterterrorism. It's that simple. It's that simple. You don't know who the people that are here, and you're not willing to have them deported. And then on the other end of it, when I look at the Trump administration and I look at what ICE is doing, I see a real failed policy going on there because I'm watching them chase numbers. I'm watching them play the failed NYPD number game. Instead of going after people that you believe are public safety threats, they need to fulfill these numbers, whatever they are. We need to deport 15 people or whatever it is. And then you're seeing some dumb shit happening. It's like, oh, we're going to get onto this college campus by lying and sneaking, and we're going to get this girl who's a threat to nobody and deport her. Oh, and then, Mamdani's just going to go kiss Trump's ass and give him what he wants, and they'll let the girl out, and it'll look like Mamdani's this great guy. And it's like, what are we even deporting this girl for? Let's get the public safety threats first and identify who's in here. And then we could start to move on who shouldn't be here, who overstayed their visa and their welcome. But they've placed a number game on top of it, federal enforcement and federal immigration enforcement, and it's failing on its face, and we're seeing a real incompetent product come out there. Our ICE should not be shooting Americans on our street. And again, I'm not saying that it was their fault that they did it. We broke down both of those, and we said they were justified in that aspect. But that was a failure of our local police departments not doing their job and having ICE putting them out there in situations where they need to act as municipal law enforcement, right? You're leaving them out there on their own. So I'm watching it fail on both ends.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
just froze on cue.
Yeah.
It was like perfect time, right? We've been podcasting so long together now. Like, I know his cadence. I'm like, okay, he's done. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. So I agree with what John was saying. We are seeing failure on both ends. He's right about that. You're seeing it from like the federal government and local government. But just to go back on like local government here in New York, I think we're having the same conversation, regardless of whether we're talking about like ICE or we're talking about like what happened in the snowball incident, or whether we're talking about cops on the street being prepared to face a active shooter, like we saw over the weekend in, say, for instance, I also heard of Ohio, but I'm speaking specifically about Austin, where you back, John? Where in Austin, 14 people were injured and 3 people were killed because this lunatic, who was supposed to be from Senegal,
Right.
shot up a place. Okay, and you see this picture. He clearly has a long gun there, and that is a rifle. Okay. Now, the exact I said, we're having the same conversation, and that conversation is about decision making on the lower level and trusting the people on the ground, and the centralization of decision making at one police plaza and at the chief's level. And again, what the exact problem is that this job isn't prepared to.
Hold on, Marlon, you get some reverb. Let's see if we can get you. Go ahead. Go enough.
Yeah. No, this job isn't prepared for an incident like that, because the guys on the ground aren't prepared to face that and make decisions on their own. Think of it: if there's a shooter like that in the city, how much phone calls would have to be made before we get the people on the scene who have the big guns to be able to face that down? Yeah.
You know what? I'm glad that you brought that up, because I often talk about, what's your recommendation with the long guns? I have plans for that. Yeah.
I said many times, you have to. I mean, I like SRG, but I just think that patrol, there has to be guys on patrol who are ready, to use long guns, because they're the first ones on the scene. And if you have guys, first of all, this department doesn't train enough, right? And guys don't attend the ranges enough. Okay, we don't have a gun culture like places like Texas or Florida, where guys, the range is right around the corner, and guys are on the range like every weekend. It's like what they do, So we don't get enough training here. We don't have enough familiarity with weapons here. And if an incident like that happens, the first one on the scene are patrol, and patrol is going to be facing guys with long guns, and what do they have to respond to? 9mm pea shooter that they haven't trained properly enough, and that some guys can't even, some guys are terrible at the range. Okay, because again, we go there twice a year, and sometimes even once. There were times where I went in the last, before the job got rid of me, I went like once every year instead of twice, because there was so much things going on, and they needed, they didn't have the people at the range or whatever, or it was the scamdemic or whatever. But the point is that you need to have people who are trained properly on patrol, who are ready to face threats like this. Okay, and SRG is great and all, but it's going to take time for them to respond. ESU is great too, but again, it's going to take time for them to respond, and there isn't enough coverage in every precinct in the city for guys to to say, if things break out, ESU is going to be there in seconds. Okay, so this is a larger problem that speaks to the decision making on the lower level, and how the job has kind of removed that agency from guys on the lower level. Soon you're gonna need, you might have to make a phone call before you even use your gun, or we'll go to the point where the guns have some sort of technology in it, and one PP has to flip the button before you could even use it. I mean, it's like it's just absurd to me that I look at other departments, like even Austin, and there's problems with Austin, but you look at that scene and you see that the cop that was standing over the perp had a long gun, and this dude looked like he was, if any stuff was going to pop up again, they were already, you saw the other cops tending to working, they were taking first aid measures on the perp, and the other cops were standing around looking around. And when I see stuff like that from other departments, I get angry that we aren't the ones who are prepared for stuff like this when we're the NYPD.
I'm really glad that you brought this conversation up, because I love talking about long guns. I would often talk about this often on the job, because they never really had a plan. But before we go to, I just want to say, Detective Nolan Brothers 63. He says, tap me in a couple times. I just want to say, dude, I love to bring you on. Do me a favor, hit me up on Instagram, or if you have my number, hit me up. We love to bring you on here one day if you're retired. Not when you're active. We don't want to get you in trouble. But if you're retired, bring you on for an interview. And then if you want to come on for a round table, just like Mike Smith does, and other contributors, we love to have you on, man. Seriously. But with that being said, the Smith 72 says NYPD will never give patrol long guns. They are lucky to even have a running RMP. Yeah, we're definitely, when it comes to equipment, really behind the times, and we don't get enough training to actually have training for training purposes, and then actually get equipment and be trained with it. We don't have enough of it, and it's not repetitive enough because of cost behind it and manpower. It really is a shame. They need to do more training at the precinct level with equipment. I agree. Now, when it comes to long guns, I heard when I was on the job, there was this discussion of maybe having long guns locked behind the desk. I said, really? That's a great idea. Locked behind the desk. They need to be in the car, in every car. In 2026, every patrol car, which is going to be the first response, a preliminary response into an incident, should be equipped with either a shotgun or a long gun rifle. And unfortunately, in New York City, they like demonize guns. Like, ooh, a long gun. It's not a big deal. I'm gonna tell you this from experience. Anyone here who has military training, you can tell. If you agree with me, please tell me. Long guns are actually far easier to train with, and much more accurate and easier to fire than a pistol. I would actually, if I see cops with long guns, I trust that they're going to hit their target way before they do with a pistol. Because when you fire with a long gun, you and that gun become one. Much different than a pistol. Long guns are actually, and they're not hard to learn. It's actually much easier than the pistol. That's what people don't realize, is they see this long weapon and they speak from a place of lack of knowledge and think it says, oh my God, it's this long gun. Long guns are much easier to train with, much more accurate. It's and they're more visible, right? And so that presence alone, that helps sometimes also for a deterrence. But right now, if we do get a terrorist response, with a little pea shoot, a little 9mm, good luck. I mean, one thing they don't teach in the police department is suppression fire, right? You might need those long guns just to have suppression fire to advance on a potential terrorist subject. So the training is completely lacking. I'm really glad that you brought it up. The NYPD spends money on stupid things. So maybe instead of spending money on all this overtime at one Police Plaza, maybe they could put long guns in every patrol car. Every patrol car should have a long gun or a shotgun, not locked behind the desk, because behind the desk, it's useless. We need to be out in the street, and the cops should be trained with it. It's not a big deal. If you can fire a pistol, you can sure as hell fire a long gun. It's far more easier, and it's much more accurate. It's easier to clean. It will be very effective. So this idea of not equipping cops with long guns is stupid.
Yeah, but you see, it requires decision making on a lower level and agency at the lower level. And if we're not going to do that, we're never going to get long guns. If you as a cop have to, especially if you're as a precinct commander, have to call 1PP or the borough for everything, and you can't you can't even make a decision on where to reallocate your personnel. Just to go back to that, I said I made a comment online about these 3 chiefs that got promoted. Now, here's something else I thought about that, right? If a guy can make assistant chief at 23 years, then either the role of an assistant chief doesn't require it's been made so much a paint by brush rank, where you're just following directives handed down to you rather than making decisions about your borough or your personnel. Then that's how you're able to make chief with 23 years. Because if you really had any agency over that, if you really had decision making powers, then it would require a guy who is really, really seasoned. And I'm talking about, you have 30 years on, and it's like what it should be, which is the final destination to most chiefs on the job, right? You're a 2-star chief, and the next stop is you're in 1PP as a 3-star over there, right? But the fact that we can do that, you can make a 2-star chief at 22, 23 years means, it's paint by brush. Wait for instructions from 1PP, and you're gonna do this and this and this when it's this and this and this, rather than, okay, you're really the guy in charge. And that's the problem with the job. Okay, everything is centralized, and there's no agency on the bottom. So because there's no agency on the bottom, we can't trust you cops on the street to carry a long gun in the trunk of your car.
I mean, I totally agree with that last statement. I'll tell you right now, if I was the police commissioner, there would need to be about a 5-year period where we would hire competent people, because I'll tell you right now, I'm looking at the patrol guys. They look like a bunch of traffic agents. I'm sorry. I watch people that are long arm trained, and they have no idea what they're doing. They're fumbling with their gear. Does there need to be more training? Absolutely. But I think the problem is we pushed all of this DEI garbage so hard that we sent a lot of competent people to other agencies. There was so much corruption and bull crap at the top that a lot of competent people did not come on this job that should have. And I think that a lot of competent people that should have been hired weren't, and a lot of people that shouldn't have been hired were. And now I'm watching people that really I don't even trust with a 9mm handgun, and I'm going to give them a long rifle. I think those long rifles, just like their handgun, have more of a chance of getting used by a bad actor than the police officer to protect somebody. I'm totally against it. Honestly, I just got to be honest. Like that's why I support the SRG, and I support the CRC, and I support competent people having long arms. Should we be in a place where all the patrol cars should get long arms and long arm training? Absolutely. But I'd be lying if I sat there and said I think that we're there. I'm sorry. There's a bunch of 4-foot tall, overweight girls running around the NYPD that have no business doing policing, and I'm not giving them a long gun. I'm sorry. I just, like, if it was on me, I mean, I could see why we're not. Look, we don't even allow people to like bring their family and friends to events now, like New Year's, like Thanksgiving, right? Jessica Tish has been like really going at people that have done that, right? Like, oh, you can't walk your family and friends up to the New Year's Eve ball. You can't walk your friends to the family and friends place in Thanksgiving. Only I could do that. Only the Chiefs could do that. And I don't think it's like an elitist position. I think a little bit it is, but when you also look at it as a whole, I think a lot of it has to do is they don't know who they're hiring and they're worried about who these cops are going to bring up to these positions, and it might bring a really bad light. Either it's going to embarrass the job or it's going to endanger the public. And I think we have a really, really big problem with who's currently in policing now and who's empowered in policing now. And, again, is there corruption in the NYPD? Absolutely there is. Do we think that there's not bad actor terrorists in the NYPD too? Because I'll tell you right now, if that's the case, Group 25, if you're listening to this, you're failing. Because there 100% is, 1,000% there is. I mean, it's if corruption exists in the NYPD, terrorism exists in the NYPD. If we're hiring people that shouldn't be cops and they're giving info to their perp friends, then we're hiring people that shouldn't be cops and we're giving info. They're giving info to people who are bad actors who are looking to do this country harm. It's the same thing. I mean, there's the same way like we kept our borders open. The NYPD's borders are not only open, they're still open and they're still welcoming people with open arms. And I'm not even saying just for the bad actor part of it. I'm saying just for the sheer incompetence that I see out there. I'm against it. Sorry. I mean, it's just my opinion. I've said it before on here, and I really agree with it. We need like a 5-year hiring of competence before we even think about it.
Well, listen, I get it. We need to do a complete 180 on this job, and but the conversation that we're having, if we had the right people that were prepared and trained for this job, in my opinion, that every patrol car should be equipped with a long gun or a shotgun, long gun rifle or shotgun. And because honestly, in today's world, in 2026, cops are not properly prepared with just a 9mm. It's just not enough firepower right now with what potential threats that they could be facing. And we've seen it. Not just in New York. I mean, if you look throughout the country, cops have been in positions where they're facing some serious firepower. Not just active shooter situations, but just lone wolves or just in situations where they really need that firepower. And I will say that, from a place of experience, that long guns are easier than pistols, but we do need the right people, and it's unfortunate we don't have them. And is 5 years enough? I hope so. Because I guess we could say that a majority of the job, probably close to 50%, has less than 5 years on the job. Are there outliers there? Yeah, there are outliers. But even with that, there are cops there that want to do the job. But eventually, in order to get along, to go along, and to have a career, they have to, even them, the boots on the ground, they have to play the game and go along with their leadership. And eventually, you become indoctrinated to the training that you have. Even if you have the tools and the potential, but if you're being trained to be passive and you're being trained a certain way, eventually that is going to become how you operate. You can tell yourself no. You can tell yourself, oh, you know what? I know what I should do out there. But if you're trained a certain way, eventually that is how you're going to respond. That's the reality. And it doesn't matter if you're big or you're in shape, but if you're trained a certain way, that's how you're going to respond.
Yeah, I just think that if you bring more agency at the bottom, then you're gonna have a culture change, and eventually, what's gonna happen is you're going to push out those people who can't do the job. If you're 4 feet tall and you're overweight, then and we have this culture change, you're probably going to realize this ain't the job for you. Okay, and I think it would also, attract the better candidates for the job. Guys who see that it's a different NYPD, and that if you're a military guy and you're looking at which department to join, first of all, I think if you just got out of the military and you're looking at agencies to join, and let's say you happen to live in the Northeast, or you have an affinity for New York and you want to come here, you're already looking at NYPD. But the thing is, NYPD is you're gonna cross out NYPD from your list when you see, when you hear guys talk about it and hear about all the problems that are there, and you see stuff like, what you have on TV, you're gonna be like, I see what's going on. I don't want any part of that, right? But if you have a culture change, you're gonna attract the better candidates, right? And that culture change will trickle down throughout the department, okay? And it'll I think it'll work itself out. But I think it starts with telling cops on the street that you mean that again, I like to say, like if you're on patrol, you're the commanding officer of your sector. Okay, you're in charge of your sector. You're you have the power to make decisions on your own. You don't need the boss for everything. Don't need the boss to give you instructions to tie your shoelace. You make the call when you're out there.
I just want to say, I think John is right, man. That she looks like that gun's handling her. She's not handling that gun.
I mean, dude, look at it though. Like this, I'm not making fun of her. This is the average NYPD cop today. I'm not making fun of her, but like she doesn't even know she's being filmed. She doesn't know there's a guy right next to her.
She has no idea.
And this is SRG right here. These are people that were supposedly qualified and highly trained into doing this, and like he's fumbling with that gun. She has no idea who's around her. She can't even get dressed in the street. I mean, like, I'm sorry. It's just I don't see competence when I look at the NYPD. I just don't. I think we could get back there, but I don't think anything's being done to get us back there. I think the exact opposite is being done. And we're just continuing further down because I really believe that they're looking to diminish the size and the budget of the NYPD. And that's been the goal for the last 12 years. That was the goal under Eric Adams. It was the goal under Bill de Blasio. It's the goal under Zohran Mamdani. They're going to bring in this Department of Community Safety. I mean, and look how they paint SRG like they're this rogue agency that's out there to beat people up and stop their First Amendment activities. Does this girl look like she's there to beat people up and stop their First Amendment? Like, does she look like a paid government goon that's coming out there? Like, come on, it's just ridiculous, So like, I mean, this is just one example, but like there's, you go to patrol now. I mean, it's even much worse. People don't even take care of their equipment. They don't take care of the RMPs. They don't take care of their own firearms. I mean, you see it at the range, and I get what you're saying that shooting a long arm is it could be trained easily. Yeah. But I mean, shooting a 9mm is not that hard either. Like these people having a really big problem doing it.
I'm just saying a long gun is even easier than a 9mm. It's even easier than a pistol. But yeah, you're right. I mean,
shooting it is, but maintaining it isn't.
Well, those are two different conversations. That's a good point.
Well, to be fair, like you watch most cops now, and everybody's overweight. So, it's a bigger problem than just her. It's a job problem. Everybody's overweight, and that could be a byproduct of everyone being overworked and not having the time to be really fit for the job and eating crap on the job. But it's also a problem with we're not putting the agency on the guys. Like, you're a cop, you're supposed to look the part, okay? And in order to, that looking the part is half your job. And I'm sorry, but if you can't look the part and you look like you can't chase a perp for 2 blocks without collapsing over, that's a big problem. And again, it's about being an adult department. Other departments have fitness standards that you got to pass yearly. You don't have to be like you don't have to be a super cop or look like you're ready to go to UFC, okay? But I'm sorry, you gotta at least look the part. You gotta look the part in the uniform.
Well, I think that's part. Honestly, I think that's part of your job, right? Listen, yeah. I'm getting close to 50. I still I still maintain a high level of fitness. I watch what I eat, and I'm not doing any TRT replacement therapy. I think eventually I would like to, and I think we should have a discussion also. I think I have not dived into it yet, but I will. I know that once you start that you have to stay committed to it, and I'm traveling by RV, and so for me it's kind of difficult to do that, but I think that is part of your job. Part of your job is maintaining your equipment, maintaining your uniform, and I think part of that is also maintaining a good diet. Because if you're not maintaining a good diet, then you're going to be sluggish. You can't run. Let's be honest. If you go out and you eat a double cheeseburger at McDonald's and French fries and you have a Coke, you're not going to run after a perpetrator. You're going to feel heavy. So, and there's no excuse. With artificial intelligence right now, you can put in all your information, your body type, your age, your weight, and you can formulate a diet plan. And even when you're on the street and you're on the run, if you don't have time, you can go into artificial intelligence and it will tell you what's the best thing to get from McDonald's or Burger King while you're on the run so that you maintain a high level of fitness and a better diet that's more conducive to what you need to be prepared out there. If you're, like I said, if you're eating all these carbs, so you're eating a big giant thing of French fries and you're having a Coke, you're not going to run after someone. You're going to get a huge insulin spike. All that glycemic sugar is not going to be good. It's heavy for you. Maybe there should be some training on the job of how your diet should look like. Something small, some training so you understand what you should eat, because that correlates to how you're going to do your job. You also feel better, right? You will be less tired during the day if you have a better diet. You feel better, and you also look better, which is important. And I think those correlate to your job. But I do think that's part of your job is maintain. I'm not saying you have to be, like you said, you don't have the time to be a UFC fighter or a trained CrossFit athlete, but you have to maintain a level of fitness that you could do your job and be capable of doing your job, and not necessarily always running after a perpetrator, but just being able to move around. I mean, that girl, honestly, I'm not picking on her, but she does. You can just see she does not look prepared. She has a little bit extra in the front. She's having trouble just leaning over to get to that long gun. You see the way she's reaching over, and it's just, it should be important. Your diet should be part of your plan through the day, and being overweight is not an excuse. And people, I love when people tell me, well, I just gained weight fast. No, you eat more calories. If you lower your calories, you will lose weight. It's just, if you eat more calories, you will gain weight. There's not much science to it. So I just think there's no excuse.
Yeah, it's a big problem on this job. It's a massive problem on this job, and to be fair to her, again, it's not just her, because I've seen even people in ESU who I'm like, I think you should be. I mean, I don't want to say anything, but there's a difference between your. So I'll give you this example. We used to call the A team all the time to do our search warrants in the FIO office. And shout out to the A team. I love when those guys show up. It's like when the civilians, when you show up to a call and civilians look at you like, oh shit, this guy he's gonna save me. That's the way I look at the A team. When those guys show up, it's like, damn, those guys are like the cop's cop.
They're great. Those guys are awesome, by the way.
Yeah. Shout out to the A team. And if you're an FIO or what we used to call FIO assistant, which are the cops that work for the sergeant, and you're doing a search warrant, you better have breakfast ready for the A team. Get some donuts, get some bagels. Now, those guys probably ain't gonna be eating all that crap, but it's the gesture that counts, okay? So make sure you have breakfast, some coffee, and just some bagels ready for these guys, okay? That used to be one of my pet peeves when we do warrants for like conditions or like some other team, and people forget to get the coffee and donuts for the A team. I hated that. So if you're there and you're using the A team, have some coffee and bagels ready for them. It's not that hard, right? But anyway, there was a time where we had to use the regular ESU, and we were going up the in the Weeksville houses in the 7-7, and they had to stop on one floor, whereas and catch their breath, whereas the A team just went all the way up there in one shot, So my point here is that the job has a big problem with unhealthy cops and cops not being as healthy as they should be. And the job itself, I don't think they care, because had they cared, again, in the scamdemic, you'd have been a big proponent of natural immunity and natural health instead of putting a chemical in your body. But as we know, the job was. So just to be fair to that cop, it's a bigger problem for the job. And if you're that cop listening to us right now, we're not picking on you. We're just saying for your own health. Okay, you don't want to be involved in a pursuit, in a foot pursuit with a perp, or be in a tussle with a perp, and then your health puts you at a disadvantage. Okay, so if you're in that role, you really got to be you got to be prepared. I'm sorry, especially if you're in a SRG, which is usually thought of as baby ESU or a pathway to ESU. You should look the part and be ready for what it entails.
You know, John's got a good point, right? Like, for one, if you know you're on camera, right, you'd want to be as savvy as you can with that gun, right? You want to look good putting that gun together. She looked like she was totally fumbling, like it was her first time. Now, I get it. Listen, not everyone is 6 foot tall. I'm not even 6 feet tall. I'm 5'10". Not everyone's 6 foot tall or 6'2" and has all the perfect physical attributes. But I will say this. I think there has to be responsibility for your person. You have to know your limitations and your capabilities. So if you're 4 foot tall and you're a woman, and maybe you don't have the strength, maybe you can find what you can offer. Break down that gun as fast as possible. Be savvy with it and lose some goddamn weight. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be mean, but it's the reality, right? You control what goes in your body. You control what you eat. So have a little discipline. And if you know you're going to be wearing that uniform and you look in the mirror and you need to lose weight, well, lose it. And I want to say, I'm tired of people saying, well, I can't lose weight. You can. If you eat less calories, you will lose weight. It just takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it takes time. Instead of having 3,500 calories in a day, have 2,000, and you will lose weight. Just try it. And even if you went to McDonald's drive-through every day, but you had 2,000 calories instead of 3,500, you will lose weight. It's just the reality. It's of what you're consuming. Don't tell me, oh, well, I just gained weight. No, you don't. You don't. That's not how the body works. You gain weight because you eat like an animal, So there has to be control and self-discipline. And I really believe it. You have to know your limitations and your capabilities. And if you know that you're 4 feet tall and you can't offer that height, well, offer something else. Become so proficient in that firearm that you break it down. I mean, someone's filming you and you still fumble. You look, and we talk about, right, it's important to look the part. People watch you like, man, she doesn't even know how to work that gun. I can get that gun from her. You don't want people to think that, because the reality is you are just a deterrent. The reality is any gun can be taken from someone, right? I think that I'm pretty proficient, John, Marlon. But the reality is, if 5 guys decide to jump us, they can get the gun from us. We can't handle 5 guys. It's the reality. But we want to give the illusion that it would be virtually impossible. And people are looking at that girl saying, you know what? I could get that gun from her. And maybe the more they think that, they'll try it. Even at 4 feet tall, you want to give the illusion that they can't take that from you. She's so proficient. She's won with that gun. But you don't see that there. She looked like she was fumbling. It was like her first day, like the first time she even held it.
It's true. It's true. If you feel you don't matter on this job, then you're gonna reflect it, and that's the big problem, man.
Yeah. My friend was I'll never forget. He was getting in a lot of trouble and kept getting arrested. He was kind of a bad kid, He's since been cleaned up his act, but he said to me one time, he seen me when I was a cop, and I was like kind of out of shape at that point. Like I lost a lot of my muscle tone. I was doing midnights. I looked like I had that gray look from like not seeing the sun. And he's like, dude, what the fuck happened to you? And I'm like, why? He goes, bro, you used to always be in shape. Like you look like you're out of shape. And I was like, dude, it's hard. Like I work nights. I'm like, I don't eat right. And he's like, bro, you were in shape when you didn't need to be in shape. Now you're in a job where you need to be in shape. You should be in the best shape of your life. And I was like, he kind of stopped me in my tracks, right? And at that time, he's not a fan of the police either. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you know what? He's dead right. And it motivated me, like from that moment on. I'm like, I'm getting back in the gym, staying in the gym. Like that's, because he's like, and he was a monster. You know what I mean? Like he was like, dude, you're in a real dangerous job. He's like, if I was on that job, I'd be in shape. That would be the only thing I'd be doing. And so like, I do think everything matters. I think your physical abilities will affect your mental abilities, but I think bigger there, the situational awareness just was not there at all. In that scenario that I just brought up. And I think that's true for a lot of cops. I used to make fun of cops when I was a cop. Our time, I'd be like, yeah, they're not looking. They're not the police. You know how they're not the police? That you're driving next to them and they're not looking at you. They got their window up and they're not looking at you. Like when you're a cop and you're in the passenger seat, you should be like this the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Looking in your rear view, looking in the thing, letting your driver know, yo, what's that behind us? Who's that over here? What's that over there? When you pass cops and they're not looking at you, they're not in the game. They're not in the game. And you kind of always got to be in the game. And I know it's not good for you mentally, and it's just there's this level of paranoia that it brings to you. But that's what your job is. So it's the unfortunate reality. Will it break you down over time? Absolutely. But that's the heightened state that you need to be in. And unfortunately, when I see a lot of cops today, they got the windows up and they ain't looking. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I was never comfortable in that uniform in those big dumb marked cars. I wasn't even comfortable in the unmarked cars. I felt like you never know. I knew all those scenarios that have happened in the past to cops, and those things are realistic. They're realistic scenarios, especially today. I think at least when we were cops, people had a fear of us. They had a healthy fear of us. You know what I mean? Like today, that's gone. I mean, I think you should be even more paranoid than we were. And I don't see it, man. And I don't. And again, I think it goes into who they're hiring, and the lack of supervision that's there, the experienced supervision, the lack of training that's there, and the lack of senior officers to really smack some sense into these kids. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? You need to, like, you're an idiot. What'd you do that for? Why you're doing that? And today we don't want to offend anybody. We don't want to offend anybody, and you watch people that really should get brought up on cowardice charges get rewarded. And it's, and you're told not to say anything and not to think anything and not to think for yourself. And it's really bad, dude. It's really bad. And I do believe there needs to be a level of compliance with the policing, but on certain things, not everything. Not when you're watching it, you're watching literally, you're watching your own profession in your own city being brought down. And it's time to like speak up and say something. And again, I blame the leadership of this job for the last 12 years. They haven't done anything, I directly blame them. I don't blame the politicians. You let them use you as a hand puppet, and here we are. Here we are. That's the cop of today. We don't want that warrior, Eric. We don't want that guy that looks like he's ready. We don't want that muscular guy. Maybe he has a tattoo. Maybe he has like a shaped up beard. You don't want that guy there. You don't want the guy that looks intimidating because he's a warrior. We want guardians. I'm sorry, but does that girl look like a guardian to you? Because she doesn't look like a guardian or a warrior or even a cop to me.
She was going to say she guards on food. That's about it. Yeah. Listen. The bottom line is, you're right. Maybe we need 5 years to turn around. I don't know. Unfortunately, I think we need more than that, right? Because a majority of the job has 5 years on. So you figure in 5 years from now they'll have 10 years. So it might take to the point that they all retire. This is a long time. Unfortunately, the amount of damage that's been caused in the police department I do believe it's reversible, but it's going to take a long time, and it may take 5 years. Or what I think can work, and I was always a firm believer on this, the most important thing is to change the leadership. Because if you change the leadership, they'll have people fall in line, they'll teach them, and then whoever doesn't belong there, it will weed themselves out, right? And if you have good leadership, the boots on the ground will start to police each other. And the people that don't belong, they'll weed themselves out. And as Marlon said earlier, they'll find something for them. They'll find another police department that's more suitable for them if it's not an environment that they're not cultivating to. So I just want to read this comment here, because you're talking about fear in the police. So BKF778 says, why should citizens fear cops who are supposed to protect and serve? I love this topic. So there is a healthy fear, right? And I don't think that people should be just intimidated. Oh my God, there's cops around, cops in sight. But there should be a healthy fear. For instance, what's the best analogy I could give? I'm not afraid of heights, but I think there's a healthy fear of heights, right? I wouldn't go stand on the top of the Empire State Building and then stand as far as I could on the ledge. I would think that you would be afraid. I would be afraid. Is that normal? I think that's a healthy fear, right? Because you know if you jump off, what's going to happen, right? You know the repercussions, you know the consequences. I think the same goes in the presence of cops. I don't think you should be intimidated by being around cops or seeing cops, but you should be intimidated to think, well, if I put myself in the space of the cop, or if I give them attitude, or if I start cursing out the cop, that the consequences are probably not good. And to me, that's a healthy fear. I think that's a different conversation. I think people put this idea that, oh, you shouldn't fear cops. No, there should be a healthy fear, a certain level of awareness that you know that if you push a cop, if you throw a snowball at a cop, you should be afraid, like, damn, they're going to fuck me up and then they're going to lock me up too. I think that's a healthy fear. Should they not be afraid, like, oh, I just threw a snowball at a cop? Okay, don't worry, because Timmy Boudette's going to come over and say, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, people should know that where to draw the line, okay? And the thing is, I think a good cop knows who should fear him, and he knows the appropriate response to people, okay? If grandma is coming out there and I see her crossing the street, I'm on a foot post, and I'm gonna smile and say something. She says something, I'm gonna smile. But I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but I just think a good cop knows who needs to fear him and who doesn't. Okay, and this whole thing about the people shouldn't fear the perps should have a fear of the cop. Okay, they should, and the people should know where to draw the line. Okay, people, look, this guy had no fear of that cop. Okay, he doesn't know where the line is. Okay, and this is a major problem in society. Okay, and it's a major problem that our politicians are okay with this and don't think this is a problem. Okay, because you look at those videos and you see how dejected those cops seemed as they're just walking, and then they're getting slammed with snowballs left and right, and this guy would be under. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm immediately turning around and you're going. Okay. And to me, it just seems like the political atmosphere have made cops feel dejected, feel like they can't, again, they have no agency. You just got to take it and walk off, and people like this have no fear of the police. He doesn't know where the boundaries are, and the thing is, if a cop feels dejected from that, what would he do in a scenario when a madman like this? For those of you who don't know, this is a picture from the North Hollywood shooting. I thought I'd find a picture of it because Stephen S., a good friend of the show, and he's in the chat right now. He's a former LAPD, and he brought this incident up, and I think this was one of those incidents that's always stuck in my mind, being a cop, especially when I'm doing a detail in Manhattan or, someplace, some high profile place, because this incident, a lot of you guys who are Gen Z may not be aware of this, but this was a big deal when it happened. Now, this is a scene from the movie, but this is exactly how they were dressed, and this is how they were armed. And they were going at the police with AK-47s, with extended magazines. So my point here is, if a cop feels dejected and feels that his response to this is to just walk away, then we're disadvantaging him, and we're putting him not in a mind frame to be ready for a situation like this.
No, it's so true, man. It's very true. And like, there's nothing wrong with having a healthy fear. Like, I had a healthy fear of my father. He loved me. He would do anything for me. But I knew there were certain lines I couldn't cross. And if I did, I had a healthy fear for a reason, because there would be a reaction to it, and so I think the same, but I think the same's true with, with the police. Like like you're holding the line in society. I'm not sitting there saying kids should be afraid, but when you're doing something bad, you're transporting drugs, you're driving drunk, you're going to do something that's illegal, you should have a fear of a police officer. You shouldn't feel like, oh yeah, I could just walk up and smash this guy in the face with a snowball and they're not going to do anything. Absolutely not. You know what I mean? That's not a competent society. That's not a society I want to live in. That's not a society I want to raise my kids in. We're a nation of laws. That's the matter of fact. And if we're only a nation of laws if we enforce them. If there is no line in society, then we have nothing. We're not a nation of laws. We're going to be barbarians. Those who are willing to deploy violence, they'll rule society, and those who are afraid to use it or think they're morally superior to it will be ruled. It's that simple. There's nothing wrong with I've had a healthy fear of the police. I still do. I've had the healthy fear my entire life. Like I said, I carry a firearm. You don't think I have a healthy fear of the police? Like, do they know when they pull me over if I'm a lieutenant, or if they interact with me that I was a lieutenant and I'm no harm to them? No, I have a healthy fear of them. I know that there's a line I shouldn't cross when I'm armed. I know I shouldn't be making fast movements. I know I shouldn't be combative with them, wrestling with them. I don't want to put myself in that situation, and I don't want to give them a reason to be even more scared than they already are just from doing that job, even more paranoid when they are. So there's absolutely nothing wrong. I teach my kids to have a healthy fear of the police, and they should. My father taught me to have a healthy fear of the police. Don't fight with them. Don't do this. Don't give them a reason to shoot you, because they will. There's nothing wrong with it. What do we want? We want competent, non-corrupt cops who enforce our law constitutionally. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong. If we split this nation in half, said, all right, you go to the West Coast and you could do whatever you want. Or you could come here to the East Coast and we enforce the law. And, there's certain guidelines. You can't drink in public. You can't drink and drive. You can't beat people up. You can't rob people. You can't steal from them. I guarantee the entire nation wants to live on the West Coast. On the East Coast. They want to live where there's a line and when there's policing. They don't want to live like it's the 1800s Wild West. And I know some people push that. Oh, it wasn't the founding of this nation. It's like, no, there was a founding of this nation because there were laws set and there needs to be that line. And I believe that police have a huge responsibility in society to hold that line and to give us opportunities. If you're going to go into a place where there's no law enforcement and you think you're going to operate a business and make money, you're out of your mind. If you think you're going to feel safe in your own home, you're out of your mind. If you think you're going to feel safe sending your children off to school or leaving your site for even a moment's notice, you would never. Not in a society like that. You wouldn't. Because there'd be some type of enforcement there, whether it's the police or whether it's vigilantism or whether it's a mafia type. Something is going to rise up to really hold that line between chaos and order. It's just going to happen. It's just a natural form of what's happening. I'd rather it be police that are accountable to a system, police that are accountable to me as a taxpayer, than it be these rogue, mafia types, if you will, or criminal organizations, if you will.
Excuse me. BKF778. What's up, brother? How you doing? It says, I didn't fear my dad. I respected my dad. Now, I think that's kind of the same thing. So my analogy is, my explanation for me is, I think that fear is when you're afraid, right? But I think that when there's a healthy fear is what we're talking about, means you respect the risk. And I think so. It kind of goes hand in hand. So I think that if you respect your dad, you also feared your dad because you respected the risk. You know that if you were disrespectful, there'd probably be consequences. And I think that's a healthy fear with everything. Even getting in the car, when we drive a car, why do you put on your seatbelt? Why do you drive carefully? Because a healthy fear that you do not want to get into a God forbid, an accident, right? You wear your seatbelt because of a healthy fear. And it's interesting, John, you were talking about paranoia earlier. One thing I learned being out in Asia is the Japanese culture. A lot of Japanese people look at paranoia as a good thing. That if you're paranoid, you're a very aware person. You're actually intelligent because they don't look at paranoia as a sense of anxiety. Unfortunately, I think that in our society, people look at paranoia as like there's something wrong with you. You worry. And in the Japanese culture, they look at it as a sense of awareness, a sense of intelligence. And then if you're paranoid, you're someone that is someone of confidence and you're prepared. So this is quite interesting. I think it's a great conversation. I do think there should be a healthy fear of the police. I don't think you should be afraid to approach them or afraid to see police, but you should have a healthy fear. And I think this is very simple, that if you throw a snowball at a cop, you're going to get your ass handed to you and go to jail. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think, forget about the police. If there were just two grown men walking down the street and someone threw a snowball at them, I think you can expect that they're probably going to turn around and respond. That is a normal behavior. This is just, they expect the police to not have normal behavior. And that's what's interesting, right? Police officers go to various psychological tests to get the job, right? Oral, written exams. You have to show good character. But they don't expect police officers to be normal either, right? And I think that's normal to have a response. And yes, do the police have to have a thick skin and emotionally detach themselves from a situation? Yes, but they also have to be able to know when to respond to something. And not responding to that snowball incident when the cops were getting struck is not a normal response. Their response could have been professional, yes, by responding by making arrests and start handcuffing people, but not responding. That says a lot to me. It's not a normal response. That means there's a lot more going on with the leadership than we actually know. There's a lot of suppression, and they're really unsure of how to do their job because the way they responded was not normal. Those were young men, probably in their 20s, all in good shape, prepared to do the job. They want to be cops. Their response was not normal.
Yeah, I just think that I just think we really haven't defined policing in this country, and we've really went off the rails with it. And it's the people that really put it in place that have done that. It's kind of sad to watch, dude. And just back on the healthy fear and the anxiety. Not saying that we should go back to this level, but even in Spartan culture, they raised you with that hypersensitivity, that anxiety to be ready, to be unprepared, to at a moment's notice be willing to lay down your life for the state, for the Spartan state, right? That was the greatest honor in their life, is that if you could lay down your life, if you could die in battle, that was a true depiction of Spartan culture. If you watch 300, that's how the wife treated the husband when the husband went off to war. They didn't cry. She didn't say, let's not go, don't go. She said, come back with your shield or on it. Right. And that was that level of anxiety or hypersensitivity that the whole culture had. Now, again, that was a super harsh warrior based culture, but I think in policing, it's the same thing. And when you have people that are everything's fine. You don't have to be like that. You can't go through 20 years like that. It's dude, you're in the wrong profession. You should become a teacher. You should go into business. You don't belong in policing, because if you make it out, it's going to be sheer luck. It's going to be sheer luck on you. And it's the same thing now. The whole attitude towards they call it civil immigration enforcement. It's so lax, goes directly against counterterrorism efforts. And again, I think that when I look at Jessica Tisch and I look at Zohran Mamdani, I don't really see much of a difference in anything that they say or do. I don't. I don't think there's a civil war in New York City. I think there's a civil war as like who wants to be in charge, but I don't think there's a civil war as far as like different ideologies. It's the same ideology. I mean, it's Eric Adams had the same ideology. Bill de Blasio had the same ideology. People that just haven't been not paying attention or just not well up to speed on it think that there's a difference between those three names that I just gave, and there hasn't been a difference at all whatsoever. And so I really don't think that there's a traditional civil war as far as ideology is concerned, but who's going to be in power? That's the concern. And, you know, that same war is raging in the halls of One Police Plaza now. You have people working directly against Jessica Tisch who want to unseat her. You notice, you know, I always laugh. You notice certain executives get critiqued and then other executives don't. And why do you think that is? Like that's the power that's leaking all the information. They're like, no, don't criticize them. You know, let's not pay attention to them. You know, let's just pay attention to these people. And so when you're watching information get delved out right outside, right from Jessica Tisch's office, right under her nose, and you see who it is, like you see directly where it's coming from. Notice that certain black executives never get any form of criticism, you know, and certain ones do. Why is that? Because who's in with the in crowd, right? So, yeah, I don't know, man. There's a lot going on, but the whole thing with Iran, I mean, everybody should have their head on a swivel. You know, everybody should be carrying, you know, on duty, off duty, retired military. You got a pistol permit. Like everybody should be carrying. Everybody should have that healthy sense of fear and paranoia everywhere they go, and everybody should be very vigilant going forward, because unfortunately I do believe we are going to see some on the ground attacks, and I think that we already have seen that in the past 2 days. And if you look at what's occurring at our embassies are being attacked all over the world. So we really got to understand we're at war now. Doesn't really matter how we feel about it at this point. Again, I'm not a geopolitical strategist, so I don't know how it is. But I will say that it really raises my eyebrows that, like, I watched Charlie Kirk the last month of his life really dive into Iran, and he was pretty up on it, and he made a lot of good points about why we shouldn't go to war with Iran. And, you know, then he gets murdered, and now his own network is saying that he would support the war in Iran. And I'm like, I'm flabbergasted by it. I'm like, I don't, it doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't.
Yeah. Where do I start on that? I have so I just to go back on what you said about the Civil War, I actually do believe there is a civil war, but it's a PR civil war. Okay, because when things go sideways, neither one of them wants to take responsibility for it, and they both want to deflect it in a certain way. In terms of Tish, she wants to tell them that, yeah, we got cops, yeah, we got your back, but Mamdani doesn't want any part of that. And the problem again is that if you want to avoid these incidents, you have to put decision making on the bottom and let guys stop incidents from like this from getting out of hand, like in the first place. But neither one of them wants to do that. So not only do they want to centralize power at the top, but they don't want to take any responsibility when poor decisions are made, and it becomes an embarrassment to the department. So you can't have it both ways, you know. But I you know, I have many thoughts on what's going on in the world, and like how convenient it is for these mass incidents, how convenient these mass incidents are to the expansion of the surveillance security state. Okay, but with that said, you're right, John. Everyone should be more aware of what's going on, and you should have been for months now, because it seems to me that in recent years, especially maybe the last year or two, these mass shootings have been increasing at a much more at a much larger pace than prior. You know, before you used to hear about them maybe big one every 1 or 2 years, and now you're hearing a lot of it, and you're hearing a lot of it that doesn't make the news cycle either. because there was one in South Carolina maybe about 2 or 3 months ago that was pretty big. It was like 11 people got shot, and it was there was a blurb about it late at night and then nothing. And we still don't know the full details about it because they said the lunatic who did it was ex-military or again, there's been like zero follow-up on that and zero follow-up by the national mainstream media on it. So I think everyone should be aware of what's going around them because these incidents are increasing every day. And again, it's very convenient for the oligarchs and the security surveillance capitalism big tech bros who rule us that these things happen because it invites more Palantir and more eyes surveilling all of us, for our safety, of course.
What's going on over in the region right now in the Middle East is real combat. And they haven't actually declared war, but it is real combat. There's no doubt about it. And those having real combat, and that's why I said, earlier in the episode about global conflict can easily trickle down to New York City. And if it's going to trickle down to our nation, no doubt about it, it's going to be in New York City, right? So New York City is the focal point, the economic wheel for the entire country. We need a heavy level of preparedness right now. And we're talking about, we watch a video with a young female police officer is completely unprepared, and she's in that special unit supposed to carry that tool. And that's all it is. It's just a tool. A long gun, your pistol, your equipment. It's just a tool. If you're a construction worker, in order to do the right job, you have to use the right tool. You have to be proficient with the tool and do that job. And the same thing goes for policing. It's just a tool, but you have to be prepared. You have to be trained. You have to understand. You have to know what that tool is, when to use it, how to use it. There's no doubt about it that this global conflict spills over to New York City, not just by foreign threats, but by domestic threats that are within. People that may have ties to the Middle Eastern region that are in opposition to this country. And there's American-born people here that have relatives in the Middle East that may be torn about what's going on. So this is a very serious issue that affects us here, especially in New York City. We have a huge population of Iranians in New York City, Iranian-born Americans. They have ties to Iran, but they're Americans. They're born here. And then we have people here that may not belong, that may have ties to terrorist threats. So this problem is a New York City problem. And anything going on in the world is a New York City problem. Why? Because most people either have some ties to New York City. I forgot what the percentage was. I remember one time I found the percentages of how many people actually have ties to New York City in this world, not even just in the United States, but in this world, whether it's economically, whether they have a family member or they've been there themselves or some type of connection. And most people have a connection. So this does trickle down and it does affect us. We have to pay attention closely. And we should all, to your point, John, we should all be paranoid at this point. We should all be aware. You should carry your firearm. It's better to need it and not have it better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. But carry it with a sense of responsibility that, hey, you may be another line of defense. God forbid there's a situation in a church. Someone mentioned here earlier, I forgot who it was, that there's a half marathon coming on in New York City in about a week. Yeah, these are issues that we really need to pay attention to. And as far as I'm concerned, a half marathon, that's a First Amendment activity, right? It's a freedom of expression. You're going out there running. We should be patrolling that, but we should also be looking at it from how do we protect people from potential domestic threats or foreign threats of potential terrorism. That's a First Amendment activity.
Yeah, look, I think, I just think there's an internal war raging inside of America too. And it's, I look at the leadership of this country, both Democrat and Republican, and I just see pure incompetence all around. And, I think, as far as like faith-based communities, whether you're a Muslim, you're a Christian, or you're a Jew, I think, when you're going to worship, you should understand that you're a soft target. And I'm gonna be very honest. Like I'm totally disgusted with the Catholic Christian community, because we just allowed ourselves to be completely emasculated. We have no voice in the political game. And even here in Florida, I show up at church yesterday. There's no cop in front. I'm like, oh yeah, but if there was a synagogue, there'd be a cop here. If it was a mosque, there'd be a cop here. And it's the same true with New York City. And there's a lot of holy wars raging, and I see just a lot of people cucking out for foreign nations, and it's disgusting. I watched the rhetoric online, and it's one group is cucking out for Israel, and the other one's cucking out for Iran and bad actors. And I'm like, I'm not on board with either of it. I'm like, I'm America first. I believe in freedom of religion here. I do. I believe that's why people came here. That's why Catholics came here. That's why Christians came here. That's why Jews came here. That's why Muslims came here. Freedom of religion, meaning you have the right to practice. You don't throw it or thrust it upon other people. But I'm not going to sit here and like as a Christian and sit there and like cuck out for anybody. And as an American, like, oh, anything that Israel does is great. It's like, no, I don't know any. Again, I'm not a geopolitical analyst. I'm not worried about Israel. I'm worried about our troops. I'm not worried about Iran. I'm worried about our troops. I'm certainly not going to cry over the Ayatollah being murdered. I'm just, forgive me, but like, it's just, I'm not going to cry over him being murdered. And I'm not going to sit there and bow down to Netanyahu either. And I think when it leaves us really vulnerable when we're not supportive of our own country. And I don't blame the Democrats or the Republicans. I think as a whole, they're incompetent. I don't trust them to keep us safe as a society. And I think the internal division in the politics, while I agree, look, it's First Amendment. We have the right to vocalize our opinion, but we can't lose sight of where we're at. I don't care if you're pro-Israel or you're pro-Iran or whatever it is. The overriding thing in your life should be that I'm an American and I will support and protect and defend my homeland. And I'm worried about how we're using our troops, and I'm worried about our troops, and I'm praying for peace across the world here and across the seas, right? Like, I mean, innocent people are going to die when we go to war. I'm online and I'm watching people cheer about war. And I'm like, what? Are you serious? Like, I mean, I know so many people that have served in the military. My own father served in the military. He came back as like, I didn't know him prior, but I know the struggles that he had his entire life after being in combat. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And like, I know people now that their kids are serving overseas. And I'm like, I don't think that they're cheering, whether they agree with the war or they don't. You know what I mean? I think these are really trying times, and you'll never see me jumping up and down that we're going to war. It just won't happen. You're not going to say, oh, yes, we're going to war. And I'm sorry. And I look at most of these politicians, and their kids don't go off to war. Even if they serve in the military, they're kept nice and safe from the front lines, and I think I hope whatever happens in Iran comes to a close very quickly. And I hope it peacefully. And, I'm just praying for all of our soldiers that we lost already. But I'm not going to sit there and cuck out for anybody on either side. I'm America first. I always will be. And that's just how it is. I think that, I look, we're at war whether we like it or not. So, I'm Team America, baby. That's it. It's whatever you decide to put us in. I could disagree with it. I'll maybe verbalize it, but I ain't going to be against you,
Yeah. Yeah. I think America has now. I hope people don't fall into the trap of like every brown guy is going to be the terrorist now. Is going to be the guy we got to be paranoid about, because I think if you've been paying attention to all the mass shootings that we've been having lately, it's Americans too. A lot of them are Americans addicted to pharmaceuticals, and we've talked briefly before about the problems of the problems of things like SSRIs and antidepressants, and how that affects their mental framework, right? So I think I hope people don't fall into the trap of now thinking that, because a guy's Muslim or because he's from Iran or something, he's now a terrorist. The main point is you should be aware of everything around you, and you should be aware of again, if you can carry a firearm, you should, and you should be prepared to use it, and just be aware of your surroundings and aware of any lunatic that may show up. Again, if this guy shows up, would you? I mean, he doesn't look like he's from Iran, and you wouldn't know that he's possibly Muslim if not for that shirt that he's wearing, and we still really don't know whether he was Muslim or not. So I just hope people don't fall into the usual post 9/11 nonsense that we went through already. We've been there already, guys. And if you're looking at the brown guy that as the terrorist, the lunatic may be that 19-year-old who weighs 90 like 90 pounds soaking wet, who was doped up on SSRIs and antidepressants. So,
I think that excuse me, I think that's a great point. So that you just put out there, right? Because not every Muslim is Islamic, and not every I think that's really that's a great point. Not every Muslim is Islamic, right? There's plenty of Muslims from Somalia. There's plenty of Muslims. I spent time in Asia and Malaysia. The number one religion there is Muslim, right? Most people there are Muslim, and that's Asia. So that's a great point that you put, is that not all Muslims are Islamic. So if you have this idea that the terrorist threat that you only have to be concerned with is someone that looks like they're from the Middle East, then you're far mistaken, because there could be people from other regions in this globe that take up the same ideology of anti-American and distort the Muslim religion for evil, right? And stay trained up says there's Muslim Jews. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. There's Muslims all over the world. It's the largest growing religion in the entire world. And so you have to be mindful of that not everyone looks like they're from the Middle East or from a specific region that is Muslim, and not all Muslims though have this ideology. So we have to be very careful here, and that's why I said, especially in New York City, we have all walks of life here. We have people there that are Muslims, that are Americans, that love this country, and then we have people there that are Muslims that are out for no good. And we have to be careful. And the cops have to be trained in this, and they need to pay attention to this, and they need to be prepared. And unfortunately, watching that young lady at the car breaking down her fire, her long gun, it just was scary to me. I'm like, man, first of all, she looks like she has to get her belly out of the way to reach over to look inside the car. I'm not picking on her, but you know what? You're a young lady. You're on the job. Have a little pride. Instead of having 2 cheeseburgers, have one and walk up a flight of stairs. Show that you care. And I really do believe that there is discipline in that. And I do believe that maintaining a level of fitness and have a good appearance of uniform is part of your job. I don't think it's asking for too much. We're not saying that you have to have 10 to 12% body fat and that you have to look like an Adonis, but you should look like you're prepared for the job. You don't have to have a 32-inch waist, but you don't have to have a 42-inch waist either. You have to look like you can do the job. That's what we're asking. This is your job. Your job is to be a police officer. Can you do that job? That's all we're saying. You don't have to look like a goddess. If you want to, God bless you. If you have the time, you have that kind of discipline, do it. But what we're asking is that you look like you can do the job. But when you have a belly that is hanging out 6 inches past your gun belt and you have to use one hand to hold it up to get to equipment, you're not prepared. I'm sorry. I used to always say, that's crazy. When you have to lift up the flab to get to equipment, maybe it's time to eat a little bit less. I get it. Or maybe you should drink a little bit less. And that's where it comes to have discipline and police each other. Should there be a physical fitness test? Yes, but we don't have one. At least what we could do is be honest with each other. No one wants to be honest anymore. Oh, I love when women tell each other, oh, you look fantastic. You look great. Really? I used to say all the time, right? When you go out and you see that one girl, she's out of shape and she's got like a horrible outfit on. And we said, man, that girl's got no friends. Because if they let you go out and look like shit, you got no friends. If If they're, oh, you look fantastic. Your lipstick is on your face, right? You put it on your nose. You're fat and out of shape. You really have no friends because they should tell you the truth. You don't look good. And the cops should be able to tell each other, you know what, dude? You're not looking good. John, just like you told me about that cop that told you were in better shape, he did the right thing because it motivated you, right? You're like, shit, I better go out there and get back into shape. To me, that's a good friend who's honest with you, right? It's like you see that person, they got a booger hanging out of their nose. If you don't tell them right away, after a while, it's just too long, right? Someone's sitting there with a booger for 2 hours. When do you tell them, right? When do you tell them? At some point, you got to tell them, right? And I learned that too. I'll never forget one time. I remember I was on vacation. And swimming, and this guy's, his wife, her bathing suit came down a little bit. And everyone was terrified to say something. So everyone was sitting there uncomfortable. No one said anything for a long period of time. And you know what? Sometimes you just have to say something. You know, so maybe that's what we all have to step up. So anyway.
Yeah, to be fair though, Eric, I bet her bosses might be overweight themselves.
That's
and even
true.
worse, how proficient are they themselves in rifles? And also how much knowledge do they have of the threats that are also out there? Because something I saw in Intel was, you know, I question how much the bosses, and I'm not talking about like my supervisors, I'm talking about like the inspectors and I honestly wonder how much of them actually knew what the threats are out there. And if you ask them, they'd recite that. Sure, they could all recite what's heard on like Fox News or mainstream media. Yeah, it's the Houthis or it's this. Yeah, but you won't talk to me if I ask you about the mass shooters, the 20-year-old 90-pound guys who are on SSRIs or opioids or antidepressants. You won't know anything about that. So just to be fair to that cop, I think she's might be a product of what's the system around her. So
That's a good point, man.
I don't know, man. I just think the NYPD's lost, even in the messaging, right? Like the messaging is so off base, and again, like I don't, it's just the DEI bullshit. It just disgusts me, dude. Honestly, watching with this job, like their messaging is so off. It's so ridiculous, and I still think the majority of the job is Christian, and we don't have any awareness for Lent. There's nothing, but Ramadan comes around. It's like, oh, stop the presses. It's Ramadan. Let's shut down the 4th floor of the police academy and let people go pray there, And then even now, like with all the terrorist attacks, the NYPD, they literally just this second, they just put out a tweet. We're observing everything that's coming overseas, everything that's happening in the Middle East, and we're going to be on heightened alert for Purim, which is a Jewish holiday. Well, what about Lent? Why are none of our priests? Why are none of the Catholic churches covered? And again, I don't blame the police department for that. I blame the Catholics and the Christians for being silent and compliant about it. If we're going to have a month for Ramadan and the NYPD is going to acknowledge that, and they're going to do all of this stuff for Muslim officers or Jewish officers, then everything that comes should also be done towards Christians. And it's not. And it's like their messaging is totally off. And they honestly, they aid in creating the division. They aid in creating that where it's like, you know what? And like there's so many people that are anti-Muslim today. And I understand the fear because like it's been put out there and we've seen horrible acts come out of Middle Eastern countries, and we've seen horrible acts come from Middle Eastern country here on our own soil. So I completely understand that. I completely understand it. But I'm going to sit there and I'm going to say, well, I know so many Muslims that serve this country, that are police officers, that are not a threat to me and my family, that love me and care about me and my children. So I can't sit there and go along with all of the anti-Muslim shit. The same way I'll never go along with all of the anti-Jewish things either. Like it's crazy because that whole sentiment's out there too, and just watching like the majority, and again, I think that Christians are still the majority in New York City and in the NYPD. I watch them be very silent about things, and it really bothers me because there are no honest conversations anymore. You know, when you have Catholics and Christians sitting up there in government right now. I watched Ted Cruz talk to Tucker Carlson, and he said, he gave a line that I keep hearing, and I heard my own priest even say it this Sunday, where it's like those I forget what it is, but it's basically like those who respect Israel will be blessed and those who don't will be cursed. And they take that as the government of Israel today. And I'm like, dude, do you need like a slap across the face? Like, they are absolutely not talking about the government of Israel there. They're not telling you that you need to go along with the government. They're talking about God's people. And like, that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about a country, a foreign country, and that we need to do everything they're doing because the Bible tells us to do it. It's ridiculous, you know. And the same way you could critique Israel doesn't make you an anti-Semite. It's the same way you could start talking about the truth. And like, we can't have a truth in anything today, right? If we sit here and say that white males in the police department are the most marginalized community in the police department, we're racist. It's the truth. Everybody knows it's the truth. But yet you get the majority of white males pushing this DEI bullshit, and they'll never say it. They won't say it. You know, it's, you know, and so like, I'm just sick of all the bullshit, dude. I really am. I'm sick of watching it. We're completely unprepared. We have our pants down. And that's why I say that, like, if you trust the government to protect you and your family, you're a fucking retard. Like, I'm sorry, you're an idiot, or you're ballless and you just don't want to take the responsibility on yourself, because this isn't it, bro. This isn't it. The NYPD's unprepared. New York City's unprepared. This country's unprepared. And it has a lot to do with the fact that we don't have men anymore, and we don't have men that are willing to have hard conversations and uncomfortable conversations. And it might piss somebody off, so I can't say what I really want to say. It's like, okay, and here we are, left super vulnerable, borders still wide open, people that should be getting deported aren't getting deported, and we're just becoming super tribalistic. It's the stupidest. It's honestly, we're headed for a really bad time, dude. I really don't like the direction of this country. I thought that the Trump administration would lead us in a different direction, and I don't see anything different from the last 4 years. I just don't. With more foreign wars, more of this bullshit. I watch Robert F. Kennedy. I don't watch all these Make America Healthy Again like people that I'm friendly with. They're all cucking out for Robert Kennedy now, who just came out and said, after he said that glyphosate was a poison and a cancer, now he's on Joe Rogan saying, oh yeah, but we need to do that because, you know, that's the system. It's like, oh, okay. Okay, let's keep DEI. That's the system. Let's keep not bringing competent masculine men into policing. That's because that's the system. You know, let's keep doing that. Let's keep putting more. Let's get more people. Let's get Asian women to become cops. Let's get more females like that. Let's give them heavy weapon training, even though they obviously can't do it. It's like, it's ridiculous, dude. It's totally ridiculous. But hey, we're sexist. We're racist. We hate Islam. We hate Jews. We hate Christians. We hate men. We hate women. Right? We hate everybody. Right?
Yeah, and we're gonna get that. We hate cops too.
Oh, we hate cops.
We're gonna get that a lot today.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Just because we're telling, again, we weren't picking on that cop, but for her sake, okay, you have to be ready to do the job for your own life. Okay, and you know, before we close out, I want to give a shout out, or rather, I want to say a prayer to this officer, who, his name is David Hoffer. He was killed in the line of duty about 10 years ago, and he was from the NYPD. He transferred. He had about 5 years on the job, and then he moved to Texas, and he joined the ULIS Police Department, and they're like they're a suburb around the Dallas Fort Worth area. And unfortunately, he was ambushed and killed in the line of duty. And again, we're not, us being critical of that officer, of that female officer, is because you really have to be prepared for the job that you're facing. And this young man, he certainly looked the part. And again, I think when the job loses capable officers like that, it's a loss. It's our loss, you know, and it's the city's loss. And I just wanted to, before we finish, say a prayer to this officer and his family, because he was certainly, you know, tragic, you know, that he, you know, that happened to him when, again, he left NYPD. And, you know, certainly I think he considering the way things have gone in NYPD, I think he would have had a great life in Texas. But unfortunately, his life was cut short due to an ambush. Okay, which again is why we're saying, you guys on patrol and that female officer, you have to be prepared to do the job, because you never know what's going to happen out there. You never know who you're going to encounter, and you never know what's in store for you. And even this young man who certainly looked the part, you know, he was ambushed, and I bet he didn't wake up that morning thinking that this was going to be, that his last day was going to be that, or he was going to encounter an ambush. So again, we don't hate cops, and we're just saying that, again, you really gotta understand the job that's ahead of you. Okay. But again, prayers to Officer Hoffer and his family, and you know, let's keep him in our memory.
Yeah, I you know, Marlon, I'm glad you brought that up. I remember when that happened, and
Yeah.
you know, I really pray for his family and everything, and yeah, wow, that I do remember that, and I remember, I follow every, unfortunately, cop from the NYPD that has lost their lives. I wish I could follow every cop in this country, but it's just so hard. Unfortunately, there's just way too many. So, with that being said, Stay Trained Up asked a question. Said, Eric, what are your thoughts about a go bag just in case shit hits the fan? Yes, great. I think every cop should have a go bag. So what's a go bag? That's essentials you need in case there's the grid goes down, there's a blackout, right? You have your ID in there, you have some extra clothing in there, you should have some food. I do think cops should carry like some dried fruits, some maybe extra like peanuts, or maybe a packaged meal. Have a couple of those, sleeping bag, things like that. Extra socks. I definitely survival stuff, some tools in case you need to dig somewhere. Maybe you can't see. You should have some tools, maybe even like a sledgehammer. Those are good things to have. I would definitely have a toolkit in case you're locked somewhere. I think a go bag is a great idea. And the reason why I say that is because one thing I learned in the Marines, and I think they don't really preach this in the police department, but you can't help others until you help yourself. So you have to be prepared. So if you're a cop out there, God forbid there's a blackout, let's say there's a terrorist attack and there's a blackout to actually gain control, you need to make sure that you're fed, you have clothing, you have light, you have everything so that you can help others. So great point. With that being said, 2 hours and 36 minutes into it. Like, share, and subscribe. John, I know you're paying, brother. I've had those issues with Starlink, man. It sucks, but I'm glad you powered through it. It's tough sometimes. You have Wi-Fi issues. Thank you, everyone. If you like it, please hit the hype button. And John, if you want to add any other thoughts, and then we'll get to the coffee donuts.
Nah, yeah, I said people appreciate everybody for joining us. We had about 800 people today. Always, to all the new faces here, we appreciate you. With super chats, we always read at the end. For those of you on Instagram, I'll tell you again, we can't see your comments. So if you want to be part of the discussion, come over to YouTube. There's a lively chat in there where you'll see other stuff. But we do appreciate you guys joining as well. And I think that's it. Just to sum it up, is there a civil war brewing? Yeah, but it's not one over ideology. It's just one over power, and that's it. So, all right, let's get to the super chats. Benny Boy 7670. He says, I knew a heavy ESU guy, but he was a jiu-jitsu tank. And so, look, I think we kind of addressed that. We're not making someone because of their body shape or their size or anything like that. It's the preparedness. It's your being aware of your surroundings. I mean, like, it's not, you don't have to be an Adonis. Like, nobody's saying that. None of us are. You know what I mean? It's very rare in society, in life, that you see people that are, even people that work out and train every day. They don't always look like you're a supermodel, or they don't look like Rambo. You know, it is what it is. They have lives, they have kids, they eat bad, they don't sleep a lot. You know, you're not going to look perfect. It's not about how you look. It's not about being overweight. If you are, you should work on it. But like, I'll take a heavy set guy that trains every day over someone who might look the part and doesn't never trains, you know? So it's not about how you look. It's about where you are. It's about your awareness level. And I think, you know, like that's kind of what we weren't picking on the girl because how she looks. We were picking on because how she is. Because if she was prepared and she was around and she was able to strap on her equipment confidently and competently and be aware of her surroundings, we're not even bringing that video up. There's nothing to show. She's doing her job. She's aware, you know? So, you know, we weren't picking on the fact that she was heavyset.
Yeah. Wait, I'm sorry. You just mentioned the what was she? Was she remember that at the UN? Remember that there was this video. I think we had a disagreement when Sal was on the network with Sal.
Oh yeah.
I'll post the video of the girl like standing there with her hair down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it got like 19 million views. I still don't know why it went.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a very interesting contrast because I thought I didn't really have an issue with that at all, you know, because she seemed like she was ready for business and you know, she's you know, she looked the part and again, she seemed like she knew what was going around her. She didn't, so I didn't have an issue with that, but that's an interest. You know, I just thought of that for a second there. But
well, let's be honest. We're not saying she's a fat slob. That's not what we're saying. But what I am saying is her appearance matches her ability. It's no surprise that her appearance is she's not fit. And I do think there's a correlation that if you're fit mentally, you're fit physically, they all go together. If you care about your job, you would make sure that you're physically fit too. And again, you don't have to be Adonis, but you have to be in shape to, you know, to the best of your ability. And I'm sure she could do better.
Well, being overweight too is a temporary state, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's told to you so back when says, are police unions allowed to say do the bare minimum? Look, I don't think it's a good look, and I don't think that should ever really be said. But what should be said is like, you know, you shouldn't be going after the working man. You shouldn't be doing things that make no sense. You know what I mean? You're not meter maids. You're not traffic agents. You are police officers, right? And I think that's like what it's saying is like, why are we going to go out and go above and beyond for a city that does not care about us? A city that, you know, wants to do us harm. You know, I watched that idiot at parking placard the other day. He was on Instagram, like harassing this cop that was going to, he was going to like a paid detail. I forget if it was at Fox or whatever building he was. And, he was just harassing him about using his plaque and parking because he wasn't on duty. He was literally, the dude was getting dressed out of the trunk of his car. He was nothing but respectful to him. And, you know, it's just like, you know, this is the biggest issue in New York City, apparently, is like how police park and how they use their parking plaques. And look, and I'm not saying that they should park and do whatever they want, but when they're on duty, their plaque allows them certain privileges, and there's nothing wrong with them using those certain privileges. And whether he's at a paid detail or he's going to work, it doesn't really matter. He's on duty. So, I mean, I just was never that guy. I always say you respond to a 911 call, you see a crime happen in front of you, do your job. You're writing an old lady a cell phone ticket? Come on. Because she was late to pick up her granddaughter? Come on.
Well, that's a good point. You know what? When I call it revenue-based policing, and I despise revenue-based policing, right? The people that are out there that you need, the people that are strong in the community, that are obliging citizens, that are your support system, you have to be kind to those people. And that's where you have to do precision police work and go after the people that have no contribution to society, that are tearing society down. But the lady that's rushing home because with two small kids and trying to get the third kid from school, maybe that's someone you can use your discretion. Oh, if you're not, it's revenue-based policing, or you're just afraid of getting a civilian complaint.
Yeah, it's also low-hanging fruit enforcement, you know, because doing the things that you're supposed to do are too difficult, which, again, we talked about how much that plays that played a part in what happened last week in the snowball. It's doing what you're supposed to do is tough, which is those cops those cops were responding to a 911 call, and what should have been done is shutting down the party, shutting down that snowball fight, period, especially after they started bombarding cops. But doing what they're supposed to do is too hard. So we're gonna do what's the easy thing, which is just to walk away. And it's the same thing that happens with enforcement like that. It's low hanging fruit. Instead of us going after the bad guys, it's easy to, we need summons activity in a certain area. So instead of going after the real tough guys, the real bad guys, we're gonna cut grandma a criminal summons for riding her bike on the sidewalk, or dad for following his kids on the sidewalk with his bike. And has been a major problem with this job since I came on. I noticed it.
Marlon, it's a good point. By the way, how long do you think till Timmy Boudet gets promoted? Now that we spoke about him on the podcast in length, how long till he gets another star?
I
think he's gonna get promoted.
You could thank us, Chief, when that happens, because and the fact that also let me show you that tweet. Come back to me. Let me get this picture up.
I think he's going to age out. They'll probably just do a nice tweet about little Timmy, and then I think he's probably got like 3 weeks left. I don't even know what he's doing. It's but yeah, that's a good term for it. Revenue-based policing. It's like, how about this? I use my discretion to write summonses and to arrest people for people that are actually good community members who don't commit crime. I don't use my discretion for people who smack ice off my face. Like, that's when I don't use my discretion. That's when I enforce the law. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. Like, that's a good standard to hold.
Seems so simple.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, John.
No. Say what you gonna say.
No. I found a picture. So this is what I made reference to earlier today, right? This is the pictures I put up, Chief McIntosh. And I put this up because, again, it landed on my feed, okay? Because the job had posted something and there was an article in the paper about it, okay? And what struck me again was the amount of promotions these guys have. I'm sure, are you seeing this, Timmy? Chief Baudet? Are you seeing this? Look at this.
Yep.
4 promotions. Yeah, look at it.
That guy's got more promotions than college. Look at that. That's crazy.
Oh, they do, by the way. Some of them have like 36 collars and maybe 40 something collars.
And
one chief though, huh?
And 45 promotions.
Yeah. So, and by the way, if you're watching this, Kaz, this is why I told you should have took your time and pass those tests, bro. Because we disagree with you on a lot of what you did as a deputy commissioner and as assistant commissioner, right? But had you taken those tests with your knowledge of the workings of the job and the amount of arrests you have, which is over 300, okay, you certainly would have been on paper at least been able to outshine these guys, because these guys did half the work you did as a cop.
That's true.
So I always say Kaz was a missed opportunity for some guy who should have been a really good chief, because he did the groundwork, but that's a different conversation. The point here is, though, that what I had a problem with is how quickly these guys are getting promoted and how they're assistant chief at 20 something years. And to Chief Baudet's credit, like, he hasn't had, his last promotion was like 10 years ago. And so if he gets one now, it's because we've been highlighting all of this and how it's, it seems very, there doesn't seem to be much equity going on here, so.
Yeah, I mean, like, when I was looking at it, I was looking at Gurley, and I'm like, I don't think Gurley, like, I do think his promotion from inspector to chief was a little quicker than most, but I don't really put him in the category of rocket fuel. I don't. I think he's been in the executive ranks for a long time, When I look at the other two, though, and they were talking about how hard it is to move up the ranks, I was like, wasn't hard for you, bro. Who are you talking about? Who was it hard for? Maybe talk to Bodette. Maybe talk to Bodette, because I don't know what you're talking about. It was like, it was like the article with Kaz where they said how he worked his way through the ranks of the NYPD.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Worked his way through the ranks? He fucking bypassed them. He was like, shoop, boop, and like, so to me, I don't know. It just showed that the DEI culture in the NYPD. I mean, it's a hotbed of DEI. It's a hotbed of nepotism, cronyism, DEI. It really is. It's just political patronage. It's all bullshit. It's all public perception. This is just because this is what the lefties and city council and lefty voters want to hear. This bullshit. They don't care if these guys are the most competent. And I'm not saying that they're not. I'm not saying that they're not competent. I don't know them. I never worked for them. I never worked with them. I'm not saying that they are or aren't competent. I don't know them. But all I'm saying is, like, they're using you. That's what it is. That article wasn't because they like you. If you weren't black, you wouldn't have got that article. That's it. It's that simple. It's just
John, what do you think about what Ron said?
What did he say?
Ron Lee said, what's up, brother? He said, the irony of that article to me is that one chief says if you work hard and watch people get promoted past you, it's hard to not get jaded or whatever. 7 years is not rocket fuel, John.
So, I mean, look, I got to be honest. Not today. No, I don't think so.
I
you
don't know.
What I mean?
Times change, right? Yeah.
I think like the 2 years from inspector to chief were hard. I don't think these promotions are anything yet. I think you're going to see some crazy promotions in the next decade. You're going to see some really off the wall things that you never seen before, because they're going to have no choice, because there is a lack of competence in the entire police department. There's a lack of experience in the entire police department. So I don't know. I don't know. That's just my opinion on it. I just think the Gurley's the least egregious of the other two, and I'm not saying that they're not competent, but clearly, if they weren't black, I don't believe that they would have got fast tracked through those promotions, and there wouldn't be an article about them. And anyone that says different, you're lying. I don't care. It's what it is. It's just the truth. Like, I'm not trying to knock anyone. But, what you look at a guy like Timmy Bodette, who's out on the street every day. I never see none of them holding the megaphone. I never see any of them at all of these other things. I never see them having to bear the brunt of all the bullshit and all the criticism. Sorry, it just is what it is. And again, 36 collars. Come on, man. It's like, follow it all the way up. Follow it all the way up. It's,
Yeah. John is right. Chief Gurley is less egregious than the others. Okay. But when I see things like this, like let's see. Wait, let's remove that. Let's see. Oh. Sorry. Yeah. When I see things like some of these arrests, like Chief McIntosh, I'm like, okay. And the other one is even more like, which one is it? Chief Edwards, right? Chief Edwards, 26 arrests. Okay, 26 arrests in your career. Okay.
Yeah, and he has my time. Like, I think he's got 6 months.
Yes,
he's got like 6 months on me and you, Eric. Like, he's but 100%, Ron. I totally agree with you. He said, but talk about watching people pass you by, it's disingenuous. 100%. Nobody in that article should talk about anybody passing them by. Nobody passing them by. That's 100%. I agree with you. Totally agree with you.
Well, and think about this. The reality is, if someone is passing, that's why the job's not doing a good job. The reality is, if they my daughter let the dog out here, but the reality is, if they're passing you, then maybe you're not doing a good job, right? Maybe you're not doing a good job, or you are doing a good job and you're being passed over because of nepotism. That's the reality.
Yeah, Chief Edwards, 26 scholars, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not just not there. All right, so what do we got? It's told to you so back when. He says, police expert without a single arrest. Never owned handcuffs. 0 hours on her feet, standing on a post. Never handled a radio run. Never settled the domestic dispute. and has never been in a physical fight.
Good point.
And yet you made it to police commissioner. Look, Kaz never supervised one person and he became deputy commissioner. So, I mean, you know,
talk about rocket fuel, right?
You know, never had to, never couldn't run a patrol squad, but yet he's running the police department.
So, John, are you telling me that Jessica Tisch, if she wasn't a billionaire, you don't think she'd be the top #1 person for this job?
There's not a chance in hell that Jessica Tisch would ever be even considered for it. It's just,
but she's an analyst, but she was data driven, you know. No.
I mean, if we had media, they would be reporting this stuff like that. But instead, they're like, "This is the best choice ever." It's like, oh, really? Yeah. and again, like I at the time, I really supported the appointment because I'm like, all right, she doesn't have to be beholden to Adams. Adams clearly can't be trusted. And, you know, she doesn't need the job, so she could actually be the police commissioner and not worry about getting fired or anything like that. So I supported the appointment, but, you know, it's past time. I don't think she did what I thought she could do. And I don't support it anymore. I think it's ridiculous. And to watch everybody on stage, I was actually thinking about it the other night. I was like, if I would have took the endorsement, would I have said that I would keep Jessica Tisch as my police commissioner? And I 100% would have said no. Like I 100% would have said no. I would have been the only candidate for mayor that would have said no. Like they all, oh yeah, no, I would 100% keep her if she's willing to stay. I would have been like, no.
Yeah. The progressives would have hated you. Yeah.
And I would have, and could you imagine how the media would have reacted to that? Like, I don't know why that was in my head, but I was just thinking about that. Like the media would have reacted to that. Like they would have went nuts. How could he not have her? Like, why would you have her is a better question.
Yeah. All the white liberal women who work in the media would have blown a gasket at you, John. They'd might have stormed out of that entire interview entirely, you know. And
yeah, no, absolutely.
Protest in front of your door the next day. You know?
Oh yeah.
Hit piece after hit piece on me.
Yep.
John, you would have been the angry white guy. Oh.
Yeah.
It'll make John look like Hitler the next day. Watch.
Oh yeah, John would have John would have been a white supremacist.
Yeah, really crazy.
Even though he's Italian.
The Smith says Shell was on the Epstein list. I mean, look, I think he would have been. You know what I mean? I think if he would have got the invite, if he was in with the in crowd, then I think he would have been. You know, he was hanging out with Andrew Cuomo last night. I didn't get to listen to the interview. You know, because they're geopolitical analysts now. I think they were talking about the snowball fight or whatever. I didn't get time to listen to it. I passed out. And I wouldn't traditionally ever listen to an Andrew Cuomo show. Like 99.9% of everybody in America. I don't think anyone's really going to listen to that show. That's like who the hell is really listening to Andrew Cuomo? But you know, it's a joke.
Why are you telling me people aren't lining up to listen to John Shell because he's so informative, so professional, so interesting, and he looks great too.
You know, I really wonder like what it is with WABC. Like I want to see their real true numbers because it's like geriatric radio. I guarantee we're crushing them.
They're handicapped.
I guarantee it. And if we aired on the same amount of things that we did, we would blow them through out of the water. Like because I can't like I just watch. Who else just got someone else just got a show? I'm like nobody's listening to this. Nobody's listening to it.
Everybody's got a show these days, huh?
You know, like Stone, I could see listening to. Cumia, I could see listening to. The rest of them, I got no respect for. Sid Rosenberg, I'll never listen to Sid Rosenberg ever again. Unless one of you guys goes on there, I go on there. I'm never listening to Sid
you can count that at.
Yeah.
Sal took care of that. That was enough.
Yeah. And even that. So, but all right, people. Anything else before we get out of here? We got through the super chats.
No. Listen, the bottom line is, and going back to that young lady, we have to be honest with each other. The cops have to be honest with each other. It's not about ridiculing someone. I don't think you should tell someone they're a fat slob. No, but you say, hey, listen, you could do better. Learn that gun, be proficient, and take care of your mind and your body. Look the part as best as you can, but be the best you can be. That's really it. You know, honestly, we could do better. We can always do better, but we have to be honest with each other. with each other. I don't know why we have to be like, oh, you're so great. You're so great at the job. Really? Are you? Why can't we be honest? Tell people, listen, in this area, you need work. You suck. You know, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
If don't you guys feel if I went to work and everybody told you everything you do was great, like they're lying to me. There's no way. They must be talking about me behind my back. It's definitely things they do wrong. Right? It's definitely stuff I need to work on. Anyway, thank you, everyone. Close to 3 hours. We appreciate it. Finest Unfiltered. It's Monday. We'll be back Wednesday, of course. Tomorrow is 10-4 Tavern. Wednesday night, Executive Perspective. We appreciate friends, listeners. Really great job in the chat. The engagement's awesome. Again, just want to remind everyone about the cancer donation outreach in honor of Derek. That's going to be in June and held by the Gunfighters Club. Thank you to them. The Gunfighters really been extremely supportive and supportive of Derek and his memory and the fight against cancer. And I know some people have already reached out that want to attend, so I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. God bless.
Yeah, guys. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you spending time with us this morning. To what Eric says, the job. Here's a suggestion, Tish. Right, you should have academy style workouts. Right. I don't know, maybe once a week in the academy, maybe on the weekends or whatever. Well, you guys could sort out the time, but you should have academy style workouts where guys could sign up and they show up to the academy and they work out with the gym instructors, and that's how we get to let's ingraining a culture of healthy cops on the job and working out. And keep in mind also, guys, that it's a matter of enjoying that pension, right? So the healthier you are, the longer you'll get to live and enjoy that pension that you work for. Isn't that the goal, right? To live longer than you work for that pension. So it's just something to keep in mind. Again, we're not picking on cops. Okay, we're just saying, okay, that you should be healthier and you should be ready to do the job that's ahead of you. But thanks for joining us, and I'll see you on Friday.
Yeah, totally. And just double on what Eric said. I had to go to a cheerleading event with my daughter, and she was at a basketball game cheerleading. So she was like off sync from the rest of the kids. So when she gets in the car, I was like, what was going on? She's like, what? I was like, you were off sync from the other cheerleaders. Like your head wasn't in the game. No, I wasn't. And she starts like freaking out. And I was like, what, you want me to lie to you? You want me to tell you look good out there? I said, no, I'm going to film it. I'm going to show you, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I don't love my daughter because I told her the truth. It's like, no, you look like shit out there. You weren't in sync with them. Your head wasn't in the game. You made several mistakes. Like, what are you doing? If you want to get better, if you want to cheerlead in high school, if you want to go to competition, you have to be in the game, and you have to be able to take critiques. If you're not able to take critiques, you're not going to be good at anything in life, And it's the same thing with being a cop, Like if you're not able to take a critique because you know everything, I guarantee you're not a good cop. I guarantee it. If you're not able to really sit there and self-examine yourself and say, I messed up, I didn't do this right, then you're not there. Same thing with working out, right? Like, you may think your form's good on something, and someone comes over and they're like, dude, your form's not good. Watch, let me show you. And you're like, and if you think about it, like, you got to be honest with yourself. It's not anything bad, man. It's telling the truth is not bad. When you shut down the conversation because you don't want to hear things, that's what's bad. And that's what society is right now. That's what the NYPD is right now. Check us out on Wednesday. We're going to have Greg Hack on. He's running for New York 3 Congressional District. He's a Navy veteran. We're going to be deep diving into federal politics with him, what his take, why he's running. So that should be an interesting show. Obviously, 10-4 Tavern tomorrow night. Will be followed by the Executive Perspective on Wednesday. So
what time?
Yeah. What's up?
At what time?
5:05 p.m. baby, Eastern time.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. Tom Joyce says Greg is a solid dude. I listened to him. He recently spoke at Donald J. Trump Republican Club at their gala. I was supposed to be in attendance that night. I wasn't, but he did speak at that. So it's kind of weird how he connected because I just listened to him like prior. And then, so we're excited to have him on. And then we got a whole lot of other guys, a couple of NYPD guys running for office too. We'll have them on. So looking forward to that. Definitely check out Executive 10-4 Tavern tomorrow night, Executive Perspective on Wednesday. And yeah, I will be back at you. Listen, I'm sure Friday is going to be another 3-hour debacle because we didn't get through anything that happened over the weekend. So it is what it is. Stay tuned. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We love and appreciate you all. Eric, anything?
Not outstanding. Again, I appreciate it. I think honestly, just want to say that was good. Means you'll love your daughter more. When you're honest with your family, it means you'll love them even more. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And tomorrow in the tavern, guys, Morgan Wright. He went from a Kansas State trooper to national security strategist. And it ties into a lot of what's going on with the geopolitical atmosphere in the world right now. So should be a great episode tomorrow at 7:05 at the 10-4 Tavern.
All right, people. Finest Unfiltered. We'll be back at you.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?